I spent 2 years in prison for my sister, but upon release, my family coldly rejected me, treating me as worthless. Get out! Get out! Get out! Seamus was furious, grabbing my collar and attempting to haul me outside. Don't touch me. I forcefully shrugged off his grasp, forcing him to stumble and almost collapse. Smack! Melanie walked forward without saying anything and slapped me hard across the face. Jonathan, you're no longer the lobby manager making tens of thousands of dollars a month. You are no longer a valuable individual. Did you really expect us to put up with you? She yelled down the hallway. Security. Where is security? When the security guards heard this, they raced over. Melanie pointed at me and yelled at the security officers. How can you allow anyone in here? Get this beggar out of here now. The chief of security approached Melanie and kindly said, Ma'am, what is the problem? Melanie pointed at me again. This man is a penniless beggar attempting to scam a meal here. Get him out. The security chief stared at me coldly and said, Sir, please leave. I normally kept a quiet profile, rarely revealing my role as hotel owner. Even though I lived and ate here, only high management knew who I was. When I saw the head of security trying to toss me out so rapidly, I fixed him with a harsh look and asked, Is this how you handle situations? Don't you understand the hotel's policies? We should not judge anyone based on their appearance or offend any guest. The security chief's eyes flickered with apprehension. He gazed at me uncomfortably, not daring to say anything. When Seamus saw this, he grew anxious. Don't let him trick you. He's simply a broke ex-con. Throw him out. Sorry, sir. We don't eject any guests without a reason. The security chief strongly declined Seamus' request. This is ridiculous. So, what are you security men doing? Are you terrified of him after only a few words? Gavin shouted at the guards before returning his gaze to me. Jonathan, I don't believe you can bluff your way out of this. I know the hotel management. One call from me and you're out. With that, he took out his phone and called. Mr. Feldman, it's Gavin, I'm busy. The call ended abruptly with a frigid response, leaving Gavin standing awkwardly holding his phone. I scoffed and calmly asked, You want to talk with Mr. Feldman? Allow me to help you. I got out my phone and dialed Mr. Feldman. Come to private room 777 within 3 minutes. Are you out of your mind, Jonathan? You are a broke ex-con. Do not claim to be someone important here. We know what kind of person you are. Is there any reason to put on this act? Gavin scoffed at me. The other relatives looked at me like I was a clown, with derision and disgust on their faces. Melanie wiped the sweat from her brow and whispered, embarrassed. This is so humiliating. How did I raise my son like this? James also appeared frustrated. Jonathan, please leave. Stop pretending. You are making a fool of yourself and your family. Exactly. Some poor folks have lost their minds and created delusions. Gavin scoffed. He couldn't even get Mr. Feldman here. Do you think you can? That's ridiculous, Seamus hissed, his tone full of scorn. He glanced at me as if simply acknowledging my presence was beneath him. But, just as he finished speaking, a middle-aged woman in a suit appeared by our side. I took the fall for my sister and served 2 years in prison. But when I got out, my sister and brother-in-law were concerned that I would compete for the property and assist my parents in attempting to push me out of the house. 2 years ago, Joanna and Seamus were speeding and traveling in the wrong direction with my car when they collided and murdered someone. My folks approached me quickly. They claimed Joanna had a weak heart but had ultimately managed to marry. If she went to prison, not only would she lose her marriage, but her life may be jeopardized. They cried and asked me to accept the blame for her. They assured me that the entire family would handsomely reward me once I was out. I didn't do it for a reward. I did it because I loved my parents and genuinely cared for my sister. I made personal sacrifices for her, including going to prison, selling my car, depleting my money, losing my job, paying the compensation, and enduring all of the insults. But I never anticipated my heartfelt sacrifice to be met with such treachery and scorn. I do not comprehend. Isn't blood meant to be thicker than water? Why does family loyalty wane in the face of personal gain? Joanna's expression darkened with disdain when she heard my words. She responded, I've already thanked you for taking the fall. What else do you want from me? This house is now in my name, and Seamus and I are expecting a kid in a few months. There isn't enough room. You have to relocate. We cannot afford to maintain an idler. In her opinion, 2 years in prison was barely worth one thank you. Asking for more made me appear unreasonable. Melanie interjected, Nino, don't you understand? A man's fate is to marry and provide for his family rather than to rely on them. We hope to marry you off to a respectable woman and get some security. However, as an ex-convict, no one will want you. Letting you stay here is already something we're thinking about for nostalgic reasons. Seamus said. Exactly. You've been in prison, so you'll remain impoverished indefinitely. If we let you stay, you'll drain us dry. He warned, his tone harsh. James extinguished his cigarette and replied coldly. Jonathan, you've grown up now. It's time you recognize the value of giving to the family rather than making problems. Each of their words was like a sharp razor cutting my heart. Despite my intense disappointment, my eyes welled up. I stared at them and exclaimed, hoarsely, no wonder you never paid me a visit during my 2 years in prison. I assumed you were just too busy to see me. But now I realize, you only regarded me as a moneymaker. You kicked me out without hesitation when I couldn't make money anymore. I cocked my head back, trying to keep back tears. Then I inquired. So you're all determined to kick me out today? Yes, Seamus responded without hesitation. Melanie, Joanna, and James all appeared determined. Obviously, there was no space for negotiating. I saw no affection in their eyes. I nodded, my heart devastated. Fine. As you wish. We're done starting today. And I hope you don't regret it. Finally, I saw them for what they were. These folks, who I longed for during my 2 years in prison, did not deserve my sacrifices. However, the $100 million I had intended to split with them would now remain with me. I walked out the door without saying anything else and did not glance back. Behind the door, I heard Seamus' furious roar. You think too highly of yourself. What's there to lose by cutting connections with a broke ex-convict like you? If we let you stay here and mooch off us, we'll truly regret it. After leaving that callous home, I explored the streets alone for quite some time before finding a hotel to stay at. Lying on the bed, I gazed at the 9-figure number in my bank account, lost in thought. I used to believe I grew up in a pretty happy family. When I was having challenges at work, my father patiently comforted and guided me. When I worked late at the office, my mother would bring me my favorite supper. When it rained, my sister would come and pick me up at work. I felt like the family's most cherished young prince. I was always perplexed when I saw tales online about parents preferring daughters over sons. How can such families exist? How could they not love their sons? But now I understand that dreadful sensation of helplessness and disappointment. I realized I had always been a member of such a family. All of the love I'd felt was predicated on my usefulness to them. I was more of an investment. Their love was the price, and my money was the reward. As a result, the gifts of fate had always come at a hidden cost. They smiled warmly when I told them I could generate money while also providing a nice living for everyone. But now they saw me as an ex-convict who couldn't find work and had no money or value. Their love had evaporated entirely. Little did they know, this ex-con had $100 million in his account. I couldn't help but be a little excited, wondering how they'd react if the son they loathed the most reached the pinnacle of success one day. The next day, I checked into a hotel in the city center. This wasn't just any hotel, it was a high-end, vast operation that offered dining, housing, banquets, and even business services. It had 8 levels and occupied the entire building. The location, surroundings, and foot traffic were all great. Before going to prison, I worked as a hotel lobby manager. Naturally, I wanted to return to my previous profession. Only this time, instead of being a manager, I'm the owner. I spent several hours negotiating with the hotel's owner before buying it from her. That same day, I assumed management responsibility. From then on, I lived and ate at the hotel, utilizing every opportunity to study and build new management and operational tactics. Under my direction, the hotel's business grew to the point that reservations were nearly impossible to come by. I quickly became a legitimately affluent man in the city. 6 months later, while inspecting the dining department, I overheard Joanna talking in a secluded area. This motel is quite popular. I had to plan my daughter's 1-month birthday party 2 months in advance simply to get a table. I've heard that only the creme de la creme may dine here. Joanna, you made it, bringing us to such a luxurious location. I stopped in place when I discovered Joanna had invited our parents and a large group of relatives to this private room to celebrate her newborn daughter's 1-month birthday. Melanie was showing off by filming videos on her phone. My face appeared in the shot as her camera panned to the door. Jonathan! What are you doing here? Melanie set down her phone and frowned at me. When they heard this, everyone in the room turned to face me, who was standing in the doorway. Jonathan, do you have no shame? You knew we were hosting a banquet here today and followed us only to get some food. Seamus raced up and chastised me like I was the plague. Who said I was here to scrounge for food? I responded calmly. What are you here for, if not to beg? This is a high-end establishment exclusively for the privileged. If you're hungry, search through the rubbish outside. That's where you belong, she snarled, crossing her arms and staring at me with disgust. The other family frowned and glared at me, disgusted, as if I were an unpleasant fly. Joanna also spoke up, apparently unhappy. Jonathan, when you stated you wanted to cut connections with us, I believed you had some fortitude. But now you've resorted to following us for a free supper. It's just horrible. Before I could react, James joined in. Jonathan, I educated you at a young age to be self-sufficient and dignified. Have you forgotten? How could you give up your pride for a meal? I stared at them and scoffed. It's only a meal. It does not matter to me. You are really something, aren't you? Sour grapes. As if an impoverished ex-con like you could ever afford a lunch here. Even if you've worked your entire life, Seamus sneered. I was pregnant and wanted to work from home to raise our child, but my husband accused me of prioritizing my biological child over his daughter. I am a saleswoman who does quite well for herself. My husband and I have been married for 2 years and together for 5. This is my first marriage, my husband's second. He has an 8-year-old daughter from his former relationship and has always had complete custody of her. Our dating life was difficult because he was a full-time single dad and had to work long hours, but we made it work. After a year of dating, I met his 4-year-old daughter. I really liked her, and I've always tried to be the best stepmother possible. She calls me mom, and I've done all a mother would do for her. I've helped her get dressed and ready for school, done her hair, cooked her meals, assisted her with homework and soccer practice, taken her on ice cream dates, tucked her into bed, and read her books. I am not perfect, and I have made mistakes, but we have been a really happy family. When my husband and I were engaged, he asked if I wanted to be a stay-at-home parent to Lizzie and any future children. At that time, I politely rejected it. I was doing well in my job and enjoyed going to work, so the idea of staying home all day with a child and doing nothing but cleaning and mom things didn't appeal to me. My then fiancé was gracious, and we both expected that would be the case with any future children we might have. Fast forward to now, and I'm 6 months pregnant with our baby. I'm on cloud 9. I am always in a state of joy, and something within me has changed. I started thinking about being a stay-at-home parent, and it didn't seem so horrible anymore. I love my son and want to spend as much time with him as possible. I know it's not all roses and champagne. There's a lot of poop, drool, crying, and exhaustion, but I can't bear the thought of having only 2 weeks of maternity leave and then handing over my kid to a stranger at daycare. I've been thinking about this for months since I wanted to make sure it was something I truly desired rather than simply wishful thinking. I discussed the advantages and downsides with my supervisor. I'm at the point in my profession where I can work from home full-time, stay with my son, and pick up my stepdaughter from school. I wouldn't mind watching her and spending more time with her. The more I consider it, the more I want to attempt it. So, after putting little Lizzie to bed tonight, I asked my husband if we could talk and excitedly mentioned my idea. I was totally unprepared for his reaction. My spouse was infuriated. He raged that we promised I wouldn't be a stay-at-home parent before we married, but I was changing my mind now. He accused me of being a bad stepmother, that I plainly preferred our son over Lizzie, and that my favoritism was disgustingly obvious. He also stated that I should not be allowed to stay at home with our son until his daughter could share the experience with me. For the record, Lizzie is incredibly excited about her little brother and cannot wait for him to be born. She has never shown any signs of anxiety, grief, or jealousy toward him or me. I was astonished and stunned. My spouse is on the couch, his choice, and I am crying in our room. I am deeply offended by what my husband stated. I realize I'm not perfect, but I've done my best for Lizzie. I never imagined I'd alter my mind about becoming a stay-at-home mom, but now I really, genuinely want to do so. And I wouldn't have to give up my job, which is a double plus. My husband's words have deeply affected me, and I am, to be honest, angry over his charge. I love Lizzie more than the baby. I truly adore Lizzie. While I confess that I have a stronger connection to this baby, I believe this is due to my own experience with pregnancy. This baby is half of me, but it doesn't make me adore Lizzie any less. It's simply different. Is this really so wrong? Am I truly a lousy stepmother? I hadn't planned on altering my mind. Again, I intend to keep my career, and I do not mind taking extra care of Lizzie in addition to the baby. In fact, I believe it may be an opportunity for us to become closer and connect over the baby. I'm not sure what to say to my hubby. I tried to tell him everything I'd mentioned here, including spending more time with Lizzie and being closer to her, but all he did was yell harder and utter more horrible things about my parenting. I'm pretty crushed and becoming angrier by the minute. I believe I am a good stepmom to Lizzie, and she seemed to agree. My husband appears to be the only one who is having problems. Update. Thank you for your warm and encouraging comments on my last post. They were quite helpful, as were some of the probable explanations for why my spouse suddenly blew up at me. I did receive several angry private comments from what sounded like bitter single fathers, which just confirmed my husband's unreasonable behavior. To answer some of the questions in my last post, I said that I had the right to alter my mind and that I wouldn't simply hand over my son to a stranger while sitting at work, wondering about him all day. I expressed my willingness to do more for Lizzie, including taking her to the zoo and museums with the baby, participating in PTA meetings, and attending all of her sporting events so she and her brother could watch and support each other. I reminded him that this was a good approach for all of the kids, and that his distorted sense of fairness, where he wanted to deny our children a nurturing home simply because Lizzie's birth mother had failed her, was incorrect. I informed him that taking away possibilities for our children would not alleviate his guilt. I even stated that I was willing to work through this, seek counseling, and speak with child psychologists or other professionals to obtain an unbiased, professional opinion on what was best for our family. Then he grew furiously enraged again. He screamed that I was returning to work 2 weeks after giving delivery, and that ended the conversation. He claimed I'd had my chance to be a stay-at-home parent, and because I didn't take it for Lizzie, I couldn't do it now for our kid. Since he won't allow me now. As much as I adore my spouse and our children, I refuse to be dominated. I won't be told where I can and cannot work. I will not be told if I can or cannot work. I'm not a dog. I'm not a slave. I will not be compelled to deny my own baby his mother and pass him over to a stranger simply because his sibling had a difficult start in life. It is irrational to purposefully limit your own child's chances in the name of justice. That is horrible parenting. The fact that my spouse wanted to do this to me and our son threw a switch inside me. I stood up quietly and told my spouse that I was going. I informed him he had crossed the line and that I needed some space from him. I stated that I would not subject any of my children to such an abusive and controlling environment. I told him that once things settled down, we could go to marriage counseling because he obviously had deep-seated issues that needed to be addressed. He grew upset and began crying, "You can't leave. We have a family, you can't take my son." I was stunned at that point. I responded, "For once, you will take Lizzie to school, and I will leave during that time." I went into our room and started packing. He stormed in and began throwing my clothes from the bag while shouting at me. I was genuinely afraid. I'd never seen my spouse like this before. I responded, "If you try to stop me from leaving or lay a hand on me, I will call the police." I also told him I was calling my mother to come get me up. Maybe this was an overreaction, but I was terrified. I only wanted to get myself and my son away from him. He burst into tears and walked away. I contacted my mother and told her she had to come immediately. I informed her that I did not feel comfortable and needed to stay with her for a bit. I packed what I needed as quickly as possible, and when my mother came, I departed. I've been with her for approximately 5 days and am feeling numb. I can't believe how fast everything happened. My family and marriage were turned upside down in a couple of days. I wish I had never mentioned being a stay-at-home parent. If I hadn't, none of this would have occurred. My husband and I were in North Carolina for a few days before he began messaging and calling on day 3, saying Lizzie had been crying for me and missing me. I've determined that Lizzie is safe. I know my spouse would never mistreat her, but I spoke to her yesterday to ensure she was eaten, attended school, and completed her homework. She was crying and asking when I was going back, and I didn't know what to respond. So I responded I didn't know, but I loved her very much. I urged my husband not to use Lizzie as a pawn to trick me into returning because it wouldn't work. He genuinely claimed I'm proving I'm a bad step-parent by not returning and being there for her. I told him that if I'm so bad, he shouldn't want me back and should not speak to me again until he's ready to go to counseling and leave Lizzie out of our difficulties. I stated that if Lizzie was mentioned in any text or email, I would delete it without reading the rest. I established a rule that any phone call in which he attempts to bring her up outside of the context of her being safe and cared for, I will immediately hang up. I told him I didn't want to talk to him right now, and he should figure out what he wants because I'm prepared to file for divorce if he doesn't get it together soon. My spouse began crying again, but I simply hung up since I was too fatigued to deal with any more that day. He has remained silent since, with the exception of a text I received today stating that he wants me back and misses me. I honestly don't know where to go from here. I'm still trying to comprehend everything, and writing it down here helps. I said that I had the right to alter my mind, and that I wouldn't simply hand over my son to a stranger while sitting at work, wondering about him all day. I expressed my willingness to do more for Lizzie, including taking her to the zoo and museums with the baby, participating in PTA meetings, and attending all of her sporting events so she and her brother could watch and support each other. I reminded him that this was a good approach for all of the kids, and that his distorted sense of fairness, where he wanted to deny our children a nurturing home simply because Lizzie's birth mother had failed her, was incorrect. I informed him that taking away possibilities for our children would not alleviate his guilt. I even stated that I was willing to work through this, seek counseling, and speak with child psychologists or other professionals to obtain an unbiased, professional opinion on what was best for our family. Then he grew furiously enraged again. He screamed that I was returning to work 2 weeks after giving delivery, and that ended the conversation. He claimed I'd had my chance to be a stay-at-home parent, and because I didn't take it for Lizzie, I couldn't do it now for our kid. Since he won't allow me now. As much as I adore my spouse and our children, I refuse to be dominated. I won't be told where I can and cannot work. I will not be told if I can or cannot work. I'm not a dog. I'm not a slave. I will not be compelled to deny my own baby his mother and pass him over to a stranger simply because his sibling had a difficult start in life. It is irrational to purposefully limit your own child's chances in the name of justice. That is horrible parenting. The fact that my spouse wanted to do this to me and our son threw a switch inside me. I stood up quietly and told my spouse that I was going. I informed him he had crossed the line and that I needed some space from him. I stated that I would not subject any of my children to such an abusive and controlling environment. I told him that once things settled down, we could go to marriage counseling because he obviously had deep-seated issues that needed to be addressed. He grew upset and began crying, "You can't leave. We have a family, you can't take my son." I was stunned at that point. I responded, "For once, you will take Lizzie to school, and I will leave during that time." I went into our room and started packing. He stormed in and began throwing my clothes from the bag while shouting at me. I was genuinely afraid. I'd never seen my spouse like this before. I responded, "If you try to stop me from leaving or lay a hand on me, I will call the police." I also told him I was calling my mother to come get me up. Maybe this was an overreaction, but I was terrified. I only wanted to get myself and my son away from him. He burst into tears and walked away. I contacted my mother and told her she had to come immediately. I informed her that I did not feel comfortable and needed to stay with her for a bit. I packed what I needed as quickly as possible, and when my mother came, I departed. I've been with her for approximately 5 days and am feeling numb. I can't believe how fast everything happened. My family and marriage were turned upside down in a couple of days. I wish I had never mentioned being a stay-at-home parent. If I hadn't, none of this would have occurred. My husband and I were in North Carolina for a few days before he began messaging and calling on day 3, saying Lizzie had been crying for me and missing me. I've determined that Lizzie is safe. I know my spouse would never mistreat her, but I spoke to her yesterday to ensure she was eaten, attended school, and completed her homework. She was crying and asking when I was going back, and I didn't know what to respond. So I responded I didn't know, but I loved her very much. I urged my husband not to use Lizzie as a pawn to trick me into returning because it wouldn't work. He genuinely claimed I'm proving I'm a bad step-parent by not returning and being there for her. I told him that if I'm so bad, he shouldn't want me back and should not speak to me again until he's ready to go to counseling and leave Lizzie out of our difficulties. I stated that if Lizzie was mentioned in any text or email, I would delete it without reading the rest. I established a rule that any phone call in which he attempts to bring her up outside of the context of her being safe and cared for, I will immediately hang up. I told him I didn't want to talk to him right now, and he should figure out what he wants because I'm prepared to file for divorce if he doesn't get it together soon. My spouse began crying again, but I simply hung up since I was too fatigued to deal with any more that day. He has remained silent since, with the exception of a text I received today stating that he wants me back and misses me. I honestly don't know where to go from here. I'm still trying to comprehend everything, and writing it down here helps. I had never offended him and was not his ex-wife, so why was he making me suffer for what she had done to him? It boiled down to my husband's fear that I would become like his ex, that I would prioritize our boy above Lizzie, and that I would injure or stop loving her. The therapist addressed the distinction between his kids and our kids. She emphasized that my husband needs to understand that it is natural to feel more connected and attached to biological children than to stepchildren. She reminded him that while Lizzie and our boy were his children, that was not the case for me, which was not only natural and expected, but also acceptable. She asked him, "Have I not been loving and kind to Lizzie? Had I not cared for her? Had I not gone out of my way to sacrifice for her, as any parent would?" My husband responded reluctantly but enthusiastically to all of the questions. So the therapist told me that there was nothing wrong with having feelings or changing my mind as long as I continued to love, respect, and treat Lizzie with care. She told us there was no problem. She also pointed out that, while my husband may be offended because Lizzie is also his biological child, it was unfair for him to expect me to feel the same love and connection to her that he did. In reality, she argued it was impossible because I hadn't carried her, given birth to her, or breastfed her, and she hadn't entered my life until she was a young girl. The therapist highlighted that there are several types of love, and that my special link with the infant, as well as my desire to stay at home and nest, were not only natural, but also did not imply that I had lost my mother's love for Lizzie. It wasn't about loving her less, being unjust, or doing something wrong. It was just different. She stated one of the most common mistakes biological parents make with step-parents is guilting or shaming them about their sentiments for stepchildren versus biological children, insisting that love must be the same. She admitted that while this instinct is normal and protective, it is frequently the biological parent who causes friction and strain. If not handled properly, both step-parent and stepchild may feel inferior. In some circumstances, the biological parent may overcompensate by making the stepchild the favorite one in an attempt to correct a perceived bias. This was beginning to reflect my own emotions. The therapist concluded by stating that even biological parents have favorites among their children, but the key is not to act on them or make it known. She assured us that I was handling things well and had done an excellent job thus far. In fact, we were ahead of the game because Lizzie was thrilled with the pregnancy and had a really positive and close bond with me. My husband argued that my staying home with our son but not with Lizzie was clear favoritism. The therapist argued with several previously established points. At the time, I was unable to work from home due to my professional circumstances. If I wanted to stay at home with Lizzie, I would have had to quit my career completely. I wasn't in a position in our relationship to be a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't married yet and didn't feel comfortable giving up all of my financial stability without a commitment. Lizzie was already in preschool. She was not a newborn. Most individuals would not want to give up a fulfilling career to stay at home full-time with a child who did not need constant care, especially if they had no biological link to the child. Lizzie would not know the difference. She was old enough to comprehend that I was not her biological mother and that I had not entered her life until she was no longer a baby or toddler. Furthermore, even young children may grasp that babies require more care than preschoolers, especially if it is taught to them correctly. In brief, the therapist stressed that the fact that I was eager to spend time with Lizzie, wanted her to be a part of the baby's life, wasn't territorial or aggressive about the pregnancy, and continued to play an active role in Lizzie's life were all very positive signals. She stated that we were doing significantly better than many other step families in our circumstance. I'm sad to inform you that my hubby tried but couldn't accept it. We tried more family trips and therapy, but he backed away, saying he felt ganged up on and that no one was on his side. He couldn't understand why I would stay at home to care for a baby. I asked him directly if he wanted the baby, and he sounded surprised. He said, "Of course I do," but added that he merely wanted to make sure his daughter received what was promised to her. Finally, he refused to compromise. Frankly, I saw it as clearly unfair and harsh to our kid to insist that he be placed in daycare or assigned to a nanny or au pair. All in the name of fairness. Despite both his therapist and ours stressing that fairness does not always imply equality, he refused to listen. It was as if he didn't want to recognize how my role as a stay-at-home parent would benefit his kid. I believe my husband expected me to cave, but all it did was cause me to lose love and affection for him, especially when he finished therapy. I informed him that if he did that or continued to insist on getting his way, I would file for formal separation. I guess he thought I was lying. But when nothing changed, I went directly to an attorney's office. He was completely surprised when I served him. I have set up a semi-formal custody agreement. I'll maintain working from home while living with my parents. When I go into labor, my husband is not permitted to enter the birthing room. Instead, he must remain in the waiting room. He can see and hold our son, but only while I am present and someone else is overseeing. I insisted on this because, to be honest, I am terrified of my spouse and do not trust him. My hubby is overcome with astonishment and grief. His family is furious with him and absolutely supports me, albeit they are obviously concerned about the whole scenario. I've told all of his relatives that they're welcome to attend the birth and hold the kid. In fact, I want them there to watch my spouse with the baby and make sure he doesn't do anything bad. My hubby is constantly texting, calling, and emailing me. He says he can't believe I am doing this. He begs, "Why can't you listen to me and understand me? Please come back and be a family again," among other things. I've told him that he needs to go back to therapy, and I need to be able to trust him with our son. That trust will only come when I notice a shift in his attitude toward our son and my stepdaughter. I need to feel like a wife to him and not simply a mother to Lizzie. I truly love Lizzie. Every day I cry because I've lost her. But I didn't marry my spouse to become her mother. I married him because I loved him and wanted to spend my life with him. I knew being a stepmother was part of the deal, but it wasn't the only reason I married him. Lizzie calls me frequently, and I converse with her. I've seen her a couple times after the fiasco. Her father is not permitted to talk about her with me because I believe he is manipulative, but I also do not want to take Lizzie out of my life completely. I absolutely love that girl, and I have shed many tears for her while she goes through this. I tell Lizzie how much I love her, that none of this is her fault, and that I am doing everything I can to make things work. I tell her that I still want her to be in both my and her brother's lives. I tell her that she is the best bonus daughter and sister in the world. My husband's family has informed me that Lizzie is having difficulty adjusting to our separation. She has even cried at her father, "You made both of my mommies leave." I was scared Lizzie would hate me for this, yet the exact reverse has happened. Her grades are failing, she is miserable, she constantly cries, and she has become quite disrespectful to her father. I begged my husband to get her to counseling. He eventually did, and it's helping her. The guilt I experience is enormous and crushing. I feel as if I have single-handedly destroyed my family. But deep down, I know I'm making the right choice by standing firm on my boundaries, insisting on being treated with love and respect, and asking that my husband do the same for both children. I can't fix him. And if he refuses to seek therapy for his problems, then I have no future with him. I'm not ready to file for divorce just yet, so I'm pursuing legal separation. My husband says that he wants this to work. I informed him that I needed to see improvements in his life, beginning with him returning to therapy. I want to save my marriage, but I have done everything I can. If my husband will not do his share, all I can do is go on. I've informed my husband that if he doesn't get back into therapy by the time our son is a month old, I'll file for divorce. I also informed him that if he abuses me, damages me, or even considers dating other people again, I will file for divorce. Overall, this is a disappointing update, but writing it down has been a form of catharsis for me, so I figured I'd share. My cousin married my toxic ex, spread lies about me, trashed me at their wedding, and then tried breaking into my house. So, my cousin Julia, 27F, started dating my ex-boyfriend Louis, 29M 2 years ago. I, 27F, had been with Louis for 3 years. We started dating after he graduated, and I was in my second year of college. We stayed together for 3 years and broke up a couple of weeks after my 20th birthday. It was honestly not a good relationship, and I regret that it was my first relationship as an adult. He and I were perfect on paper, but in reality, things were quite different. He was really insecure and controlling, not letting me do anything by myself. Like going out with friends to bars or even talking to my male friends. He was always keeping tabs on me, and any time I didn't do what he wanted, he would manipulate and gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. I was pretty desperate to keep him around, so I would bend over backward for him, but that was still not enough. He was the one who dumped me, saying things weren't working out, and then proceeded to block me so I couldn't contact him. I tried really hard to get in touch with him, but after the breakup, he was completely gone. Within 2 months, I heard from people that he had already moved on to another girlfriend. That relationship felt like a colossal waste of my time, and I really don't like that guy. We had no contact for a while after the breakup, but when I turned 25, he unblocked me and reached out to wish me a happy birthday. I didn't respond, and I thought it was strange that he was texting me, especially since I had moved on and was with someone else. He kept texting me even though I didn't reply, so I eventually blocked him again, and we didn't speak for months. A few months after my birthday, Julia invited me over and told me she wanted to introduce me to someone. To my shock, it was Louis. Apparently, the reason he had been texting me earlier was that he wanted to make things right with me before he started dating Julia. They had met through work and were quite serious about each other. Julia and I had been really close since childhood, so it came as a big shock to me. She knew how toxic he had been to me, so I was taken aback when I realized they were together. Julia told me she knew I would be uncomfortable, but she wanted me to give him another chance. I wanted to be happy for Julia, but Louis was someone who had caused me a lot of pain, especially since he was my first serious relationship. I had a major grudge against him for how he treated me. Despite trying to be respectful, I told Julia that I couldn't accept her relationship with Louis and didn't think I wanted to be a part of her life anymore. She was really upset and tried talking to me several times after that, but I just couldn't accept it. Of all people, she knew exactly how toxic he had been to me and how traumatized I was because of him, Yet she still went ahead with dating him. She kept insisting that he had changed and was a better person now, but I didn't buy it. She was free to have him in her life and be with him. I didn't have a problem with that, but I also had the right to cut him, and by association, her, out of my life. It was very simple for me, though obviously really hard as well, since Julia and I were really good friends in addition to being cousins. But it was something I absolutely had to do for my own sake, and I did it. After she told me that she had started dating Louis, I stopped speaking to her. For the past 2 years, we have been cold to each other. Once she realized that I wasn't going to talk to her, she started acting distant with me too, and I don't blame her for that. We would meet at events and simply ignore each other. Whereas we used to be the cousins who stuck together and gossiped about everyone else, things were different now. I was honestly okay with that. Everybody has their own life and the freedom to do as they please, so I didn't have a problem with her. I just didn't want to speak to her anymore. That was it from my side, but I guess she took it personally and wanted to get back at me or something. So she took it upon herself to start talking crap about me to other family members and ruin my image, which I didn't think was necessary at all because I would never do that to her. I had never done that to her, even though we weren't getting along. For the past year, she had been telling everyone that I was the reason for my breakup with Louis and claiming I had no morals or ethics. She and Louis had been spreading rumors, saying that I would flirt with other guys right in front of him. And that was the real reason he became possessive and controlling. They made it sound like I was the flirt, and that's why he got insecure, but it couldn't have been further from the truth. It was actually the other way around. He was the one who would be overly friendly with other women and expected me to be fine with it, but didn't like it when I had male friends, even though I kept those relationships completely platonic. He constantly manipulated and gaslighted me into cutting people out of my life. I found their attempts to ruin my reputation among my own family members very offensive, but I was too busy with my life to care about the rumors they were spreading. It wasn't like anyone actually believed them, so I was fine with it. I didn't respond or react, as I knew that would give them exactly what they wanted, a reaction. I was also aware that putting an end to this would be easy for me. All I had to do was talk to my aunt and she would take care of it. Even though I was no longer close with Julia, I was still close with her mother, who happened to be a federal court judge. I knew she would do the right thing. She's my dad's older sister, and everyone knows she has a spine of steel. She would never do anything underhanded or wrong, so I'm not sure how Julia turned out the way she did despite being her daughter. One conversation with my aunt would put an end to all of this, but I knew that Julia would suffer as a consequence, since she was financially dependent on her mother. She had recently started her own jewelry line, but from what I heard, it wasn't doing too well. I didn't want to bother my aunt with such petty things, and I knew I was strong enough to handle it on my own. I wanted to let this go on and see what kind of ridiculous rumors they would come up with, because either way, my other cousins were still coming up to me and telling me what Julia had been saying behind my back. It was amusing to me, almost a form of entertainment. Then, 6 months ago, they got engaged and announced their wedding date. Soon after, my parents received an invitation, but I didn't and I was fine with it. I didn't expect to be invited to the wedding anyway. I don't think I would have wanted to attend even if I'd been invited, given everything that had happened between Julia and me, let alone between me and Louis. The wedding took place 3 days ago and it was just another day for me, so I wasn't concerned about what was going on there. But after a certain point, my phone started flooding with texts from family members, all harping on about some speech that Louis and Julia had made at the wedding. I was confused until my parents called and told me they needed to talk. They were the ones who finally explained what had happened and I lost my temper. Apparently, they had taken the opportunity at the wedding to make a horrible speech about me, spreading as many nasty rumors as they could. They wanted to turn the entire family against me. I guess they might have succeeded if I hadn't had any evidence against them in my arsenal. Julia and Louis were clever enough not to mention me by name, but they kept referring to a certain ex-girlfriend, who wasn't at the wedding, which obviously meant me. Who else could it have been? They repeated all the rumors they had tried to spread about me before, saying I was a flirt and, apparently, a gold digger too. They claimed I would rely on Louis for money and expect him to pay for everything, all because I was just a college student and couldn't be wasteful. So I supposedly demanded that he take care of me financially. None of this was true. I always made a point to split everything on our dates and never expected him to pay for anything, let alone demand it. But the most horrible accusation they made by far was claiming that I had cheated on him, which was supposedly what ended the relationship. Then at the wedding, they said they were glad I was out of their lives and not at the wedding, as they didn't want such a negative influence around. They even gave the family an ultimatum, saying from now on they could either invite me to family events or invite them, but if I were present, they wouldn't attend. After that, the texts kept flooding my phone, But I only learned the full story from my parents, and I was majorly pissed. I thanked my parents for what they had done, as they had left the wedding immediately after the speech because they couldn't stand Julia going to such lengths. They also told me that my aunt, Julia's mother, was perplexed by what was going on and had spoken to them, asking if what Julia had claimed in her speech was true. It seemed very out of character for me, and she was right. I hadn't done anything Julia accused me of, and my aunt was correct to doubt her daughter's truthfulness. After learning what they had said about me in their wedding speech, I decided to go all out. I dug up old screenshots from the past to prove they were lying. It took a lot of digging, and I had to scroll for several minutes to find the part I was looking for. Thankfully, after a long time, I was able to find the screenshots of the chat between me and Lewis from around the time we were breaking up. Thankfully, after a really long time, I was able to find the screenshots of the chat between me and my ex that I had been looking for. These were from around the time when we were breaking up and he had been particularly toxic and vicious. At that point, he had said a lot of nasty things to me, like how he wished he had never started dating me, and how he had wasted 3 years of his life with me when he had the option to be with other people, as many women had expressed interest in him. He even said that now he could finally go out with other people. There was no mention of cheating, and I'm pretty sure if I had cheated on him, he wouldn't have let it go so easily. I scrolled even further back and found more chats where he was being toxic towards me. Then, I went ahead and posted it all online without any explanation or caption, because I knew those chats would speak for themselves. And they did. After I posted the screenshots, people started texting me and commenting on the post, saying they knew the rumors weren't true because it seemed so out of character for me. Everyone had known me since I was a child, and I wasn't the kind of person to do such things. Those screenshots proved that they were lying, and knowing that my family was on my side was all I needed. In fact, several people contacted me to say they had left the wedding because of the things Julia and Lewis had said about me. While Julia and Lewis had hoped to turn people against me, their speech backfired horribly, and no one was on their side anymore. Worst of all, not even my aunt was on their side anymore, which was a huge blow for them. They contacted me the night of the wedding, literally begging for forgiveness. Apparently, after seeing the screenshots I had posted, my aunt had spoken to them and expressed how disappointed she was. Julia had been so dishonest and had tried to ruin my reputation simply because she couldn't stand that I had cut her off for dating my ex-boyfriend. Most of the wedding guests had already left because of the drama, and my aunt told Julia she was deeply upset and disappointed in her behavior. She expected better from her daughter. My aunt even said that until Julia apologized to me and I forgave her, she would cut the two of them out of her life as well. Then she left, despite Julia's desperate attempts to convince her not to. Julia had been financially dependent on her mother for quite some time, and she had even been planning to shut down her business to take a break, which meant she would need her mother's support even more. But since my aunt had decided to cut her off, things were not going according to plan, and Julia was really worried about her future. That's why she and Lewis contacted me, wanting me to forgive them, take down the post, and speak to my aunt about the situation. I was still really upset about everything that had happened, so I refused to do any of that and blocked both of them. Since then, they have been trying desperately to contact me and get me to change my mind, and now I'm really confused about what I should do. My aunt is an upright woman, and we have spoken. She contacted me the day after the wedding to apologize for what Julia had done, but I told her I didn't want my relationship with Julia to affect our relationship. I hadn't let it happen in the past, and I still wouldn't let it happen now. So it's all cool between us, and I know for a fact that if I speak to my aunt I can make things right for Julia. But I personally feel like I don't really need to. She is a full-grown adult woman, and she should be able to sort things out for herself and face the consequences of her actions. However, I also feel like a jerk knowing that I can help her and am choosing not to. I'm just kind of conflicted about what to do right now. So please help me out, AITA, for not speaking to my aunt and convincing her to forgive my cousin after she made a horrible speech at her wedding with my ex-boyfriend about me. Update 1. Hello. First of all, thank you so much for all the comments and support. Before I get into the update, I just want to clear something up. My parents attended the wedding, like a lot of other family members, because they are part of the older generation in our family. They weren't exactly aware of the rumors being spread about me. Lewis and Julia were mostly talking to our cousins and relatives in the same generation as us, around the same age. They kept the older folks out of it, so my parents had absolutely no idea what was being said about me. They attended the wedding out of respect for my aunt, even though they were vaguely aware that there was some bad blood between Julia and me after she started dating Lewis. I had not said anything to my parents or complained to them on purpose, just as I hadn't mentioned anything to my aunt because I didn't want to drag them or involve them in such petty things. I thought I was above all of that, But clearly, Julia and Louis were not. Anyway, the point is, my parents didn't know, and that's why they attended the wedding. So, there's no need for anyone to question them or blame them. As soon as they and some of the older family members found out what was being said about me at the wedding, they chose to leave and are no longer on speaking terms with Julia or Louis. So it's all fine now, and I hope that's clear. Now moving on. It's been 1 week since the wedding, and I blocked both Louis and Julia so they couldn't contact me. But that hasn't stopped them from trying. They keep making new accounts on social media and sending me emails, even though I keep blocking them. They are desperate, but I've made up my mind that I'm not getting involved or helping them out. I've kept in touch with my aunt and she has made it clear that she will only resume supporting her daughter after I forgive Julia. But honestly, I don't think I need to forgive her. For 1 whole year I kept my mouth shut and allowed them to say whatever they wanted about me because I wasn't taking them seriously. But they took that as a free pass to escalate things, and now they're going to have to face the consequences. There's also another point. I honestly don't feel like Julia deserves her mother's support. She's in her late 20s, and by now she should have a sense of what she wants to do in life. I can't imagine anyone still relying on their parents for money at this point. It's not as if she's not educated or competent. She's just always been too lazy to stick to a job. It was that way in our early 20s when we had just graduated, and I thought she would grow out of it. But it's still the same now. In a way, I think I'm doing her a favor. Not receiving financial support from my aunt might push her to be better at her job or whatever she decides to do. Either way, I've made up my mind that I'm not going to help her out. I've discussed this decision with my parents just to ease the burden of the situation. Either way, I have made up my mind that I'm not going to help her out. I discussed this decision with my parents to let go of some of the guilt I had been feeling, and they said I was perfectly justified in whatever I decided to do. It was my call whether or not I wanted to forgive her, and I didn't have to if I didn't feel she deserved it, just because I was worried about what might happen to her in the future. Besides, Louis still had a decent job and could support the two of them if they really needed to get by without any financial help from my aunt. The bottom line is, I spoke to my parents, some of my friends, and even you guys here, and most people agree that I have no reason to feel guilty. So I feel much better now, to be honest. I've also taken the post down because I don't think it needed to stay up much longer. Everyone in the family already knows what went down, and I didn't want to keep it on my profile, as it would be difficult to explain everything to people who follow me. It was much easier to just take it down. Right now, I'm focusing on myself and trying to let go of all the anger and guilt I'd been feeling over the past few days. I've returned to meditating and am trying to deal with everything in a more zen way. I really hope that Julia and Louis also try to do better with their lives instead of making me the reason they wake up every morning, as they've been doing so far. I think that would be better for all of us. Update 2. Hi. So it's been a month since the wedding, and from what I know, Louis and Julia are back to their usual behavior. My aunt is still not speaking to them because I haven't forgiven them yet, and at this point I don't feel the need to. I know their apology wasn't genuine. They were only apologizing because they wanted money from my aunt. They didn't actually mean it. After a few days of trying to convince me to forgive them and ask my aunt to speak to them, they gave up when I didn't respond. After that, they went back to spreading rumors about me, and this time, they got really creative. Apparently, they've been telling everyone that I was trying to ruin their relationship with my aunt on purpose because I wanted all the inheritance for myself. It's so absurd. I would never do something like that. My parents are well off, and I have a decent job. I'm doing well for myself, and I don't even need to think about inheritance. With the grace of God, I won't need to rely on anyone for money. Maybe they're projecting their own insecurities because they need financial support. Either way, they've been spreading these rumors every time they run into someone from the family in public, which happens pretty often since we all live in the same city. People have been avoiding them like the plague, yet they still find a way to bring me up. I'm genuinely baffled by their obsession with me. I've done nothing for the past month except ignore them, and they can't seem to let go of whatever has happened. Last week I got pretty annoyed and told my aunt about it. She told me that even if they apologized now, she wouldn't get back in touch with Julia. She communicated this to Julia and blocked her again, which only made them more pissed at me. I know because they made another fake email account to send me an angry message, since that's the only way they can contact me now. They told me they were going to make me pay for all of this. Shiver me timbers. I know they're unhinged right now, and while I'm not scared, it's definitely inconvenient. So I wrote back and told them that if they tried anything funny, I would call the cops and not hesitate to send them to jail. I hope that scares them off, and if not, I have a pretty good security system in place. Update 3. 4 days ago, I received an email from Louis and Julia saying I would have to face the consequences of what I had done. I warned them that if they tried anything, I would report them to the police, but that didn't stop them from doing the most idiotic thing imaginable. Last night, they tried to break into my house. Julia has been to my house several times, so she knows I have a very advanced security system. Obviously, I was alerted as soon as they attempted to open my door. I don't even know why they thought my door would be unlocked in the middle of the night at 1 a.m. As soon as the alert went off, I called the police and told them someone was trying to break into my house. I suspected it might be Julia and Louis, but I didn't want to take any chances. The police arrived within 15 minutes, and unfortunately for them, Julia and Louis were dressed like burglars and were caught trying to make a run for it a short distance away from my house. Since they hadn't brought their car, they had cycled all the way to my place. They tried to claim that they knew me personally and weren't trying to steal anything, just wanted to break in to intimidate me a little bit. I don't know why they admitted to that. As if it would make them look better in the eyes of the law. Julia immediately started crying once she was placed in handcuffs, begging me not to press charges. But I had no sympathy left for her. You can't keep screwing up and expect people to forgive you. Louis just stared at me with pure hatred, but that didn't bother me in the slightest. I'm used to it by now. After that, I went back to sleep because I had work in the morning. This morning, I told my aunt and parents about what happened, and they already knew because Julia had used her phone to reach out to my aunt for bail, but my aunt refused to even see her. So now, nobody knows what's going to happen. I'm definitely going to press charges and seek a protective order against them. They're clearly unhinged, and I don't want anything more to do with them. Dad chooses Hawaii with his favorite daughter instead of leading me down the aisle, but he changes his mind one day before the wedding since I did this. So, I, 26F, am getting married this week, with just 5 days to go, and I'm already caught up in so much drama, all thanks to my sister and my dad. For context, my dad has been a single father for the past 10 years since my mother passed away after a long battle with cancer when I was 16. It was incredibly difficult for us, but more so for me, because that's when I realized that nobody was truly in my corner anymore. My sister, Katie, would now have free reign to lord over me. My mother had always treated us both equally, but my dad definitely had a soft spot for my sister. After my mom passed away, Katie could get away with everything, but it wasn't that easy for me. Katie, who is 2 years older than me, is easily 10 times more annoying and entitled than anyone I know. She would literally treat me like her personal servant when we were younger, and every time I protested, my dad would ask me to do what she wanted because, apparently, she was too fragile to do things for herself. That was just an act. I knew it, but my dad believed her. It didn't hurt that she had been a sickly child growing up, but as she matured, she grew out of it. Still, she liked to pretend that she was always recovering from colds or other minor illnesses just to avoid doing her chores. So I ended up doing all the work around the house while she lazed around in her room. It was incredibly annoying, but if I didn't do it, nobody else would, because my dad was always too tired after coming home from work. I didn't want to bother him, so I just took care of things. After I turned 18 and moved out for college, things got better for me because I didn't have to live with her anymore. We didn't have much contact after college, since I didn't like her and we never really got along. She wasn't just lazy, she wasn't a nice person to be around. Katie would constantly take pot shots at me, try to rile me up and be generally annoying. So I was pretty glad to be out of the house. I missed my dad for sure, but I wasn't going to sacrifice my sanity to live with my family. I know a lot of people might find it weird that I actually got along with my dad despite his blatant favoritism toward Katie, but we had a nice relationship, until recently. It wasn't like I was a doormat for him. I always protested and stood up for myself when he was being too much, and we had our fair share of fights over the years about his bias toward Katie. But at the end of the day, he was still my father, and we would eventually make up. I met my fiancée Andy in college, and after dating for almost 8 years, we finally decided to get married this year. We're in good places in our respective careers, and it just felt like the right time. I can't say the same for my sister though. Katie has been doing pretty badly lately and has moved back in with my dad. After she graduated, she lived by herself for a couple of years, but last year she quit her job to join a friend in a jewelry business. Unfortunately, it didn't exactly go well. They had done absolutely no research, weren't adequately prepared, and just jumped into it without thinking much. Naturally, it was doomed from the beginning. Not only did they burn through all the investment money that they had mostly raised from family and friends, but they were also not able to get any substantial amount out of the business. Katie had already quit her job, and after the business flopped, she had to shut it down. Since then, she has been unemployed. It's been almost 6 months, and she hasn't even bothered to start looking for another job, so she's completely relying on my dad. He was planning on retiring in a couple of years, but now I don't think that's feasible anymore, as he's supporting her. This is just one of the things we've recently fought about because I think he needs to tell her to get up and find a job. She can't just rely on her aging dad for the rest of her life and mope around because of one failed business venture. She needs to get out there and do something with her life. But my dad says she just needs some time to get over things and deal with this emotionally before committing to anything else. We have very opposing views on this topic, so we try not to talk about it as it will only lead to a fight. Besides, I got engaged just a couple of weeks after she had to shut down her business, and my dad thinks that's another reason she's so upset. Even her younger sister is doing so well in life while she can't even bring herself to get out of bed most days. I know for a fact that she's jealous of me right now because she makes sure to put it out on social media, pretending that everything awful in the world is happening to her just for attention. Every time someone responds to her posts, which definitely seem like a cry for help, she brings up how I'm doing so great and how she deserves all the success, not me. Apparently, I got it because I'm willing to manipulate and step on people to get ahead. I obviously don't do that. I am where I am because of my hard work and efforts, and she is where she is because she likes to play the victim, even though she's responsible for most of the bad things happening to her. Well, except for one. About 3 weeks ago her cat passed away after almost 15 years. She had that cat for a really long time, and she was extremely attached to it. Naturally, when that happened, she was racked with grief, and my dad told me things were so bad that I actually started feeling bad for her. I'm not going to lie, I wanted to reach out and give her my condolences, but I didn't want to seem fake, so I just told my dad to convey my message. She had already been pretty depressed, and when her cat passed away she refused to eat for days. My dad had to literally beg her to get out of bed and try to survive. It was really pathetic, and I felt bad for both of them, but I was busy with wedding preparations since there were just a couple of weeks to go until the big day. So I decided not to involve myself too much in what was going on. I kept in touch with my dad and comforted him whenever he was upset about Katie's behavior, but that was all I could do. I didn't think this would lead to any trouble for me, but a few days ago my dad contacted me to tell me that he wouldn't be able to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day. I had obviously assumed that he would be the one to do that, but when I called him to formally ask the day before, he told me he needed time to think about it, which was suspicious. The next day, he called to decline, and when I asked why, since I was obviously perplexed, his reason blew my mind. He told me that Katie had cremated her cat a few weeks ago and now wanted to go to Hawaii to scatter his ashes on the beach. A couple of years back, she and a bunch of her friends had gone on a road trip to Hawaii, and she had taken her cat with her. Apparently, she had many good memories of that place, and it was special to her. The day of my wedding was exactly 1 month after her cat had passed away, so she wanted to scatter the ashes on my wedding day. Not only did my dad decline to walk me down the aisle, but he also told me he wouldn't be able to attend my wedding at all. He said he was really sorry and wanted to make it up to me later, but he had to go with Katie since this was the first time in weeks she had expressed wanting to do something or leave the house. She specifically requested that my dad accompany her because she wanted someone to be there for emotional support. I was extremely pissed off when he told me this, but I tried to stay calm. I suggested maybe a friend could go with her, or she could do it at least a day after my wedding so that he could attend. I wanted at least one parent to be present at my wedding. But my dad said she was firm about her plans and that he had made the same suggestions himself because he also wanted to attend my wedding. However, when he proposed alternatives, Katie got really upset and accused him of not caring about her feelings. According to her, on my wedding day, I would have loads of people around me who cared about me, but she only had my father. She believed she should be the priority because she was going through a really difficult phase in her life. When my dad said that he agreed with her and that she should be the priority given her situation, I completely lost it. I told him that Katie had always been his priority, so I wasn't surprised that he was ditching me on my wedding day just to be with her. I didn't give him a chance to say anything else and hung up, blocking him everywhere. I was really upset, and when I told Andy about it, he understood where I was coming from. I cried for 2 days, but then I decided to get back at my father and do something I knew would piss him off. Since I knew my sister was playing mind games with me, I figured the best thing to do was to play a little game of my own. Instead of wallowing in sadness, I decided to ask my uncle to walk me down the aisle. My uncle is my dad's twin brother, and they absolutely loathe each other. I've known that since I was a kid and have witnessed firsthand how nasty they can get when they're around each other. Whenever they met at family events, they would constantly try to one-up each other, making things awkward for everyone else. My grandparents tried hard to get them to stop, but they just hated each other too much. Eventually, They grew distant, and after my mom passed away, my dad stopped attending any event where he knew my uncle would be present. Personally, I didn't have anything against my uncle. I could sympathize with him because I knew what it was like to have a sibling you hated. But we weren't particularly close either. Still, after that conversation with my dad, I was so pissed off that I went out of my way to contact my uncle and ask him to walk me down the aisle. He was surprised when I asked and said he didn't know what to say because we weren't close enough for that. But when I told him this was to make my dad upset, he didn't need any more convincing. He was on board as soon as he realized it would piss my dad off. My uncle actually started laughing when I asked if he wanted to be part of it. Even though they're both in their 50s, he told me he would never pass up an opportunity to embarrass his brother. Amen to that. We agreed to make a post about it, which would definitely get back to my father. That evening, I posted about how grateful I was that my uncle had agreed to walk me down the aisle. Within hours, I received a phone call from my father. I had unblocked him for this purpose, and as soon as he reached out, he told me he was very upset that I would even consider talking to my uncle, let alone replace him with that man of all people. He told me that he would convince Katie to delay the scattering of the ashes, but now all I had to do was agree to let him walk me down the aisle. He said it would be very embarrassing and insulting for him to have my uncle walk me down when he was still well and alive. I told him that he had his chance, but he blew it by choosing Katie over me, and now I was giving him a taste of his own medicine. He got really upset and said that I was being petty and immature, and I agreed. I told him I was being petty and immature, which only upset him more. By the end of the phone call, he was in tears, saying that he never expected me to act like this just because he was trying to be there for my depressed sister, who had it a lot harder than I did right now. He said I had no empathy and was being pure evil because my sister had lost everything, and I couldn't even let her have our dad for one day. Now, I feel like what I did might have been insensitive because he was right about my sister having lost everything. So I need you guys to tell me if I need to apologize to my dad or not. Am I the asshole for asking my uncle to walk me down the aisle after my dad declined because my sister wanted him to accompany her to Hawaii on my wedding day? Update 1. 2 days to go until the wedding. And you know what? I'm just going to walk down the aisle by myself. Instead of putting myself through all this hassle, I think it's more appropriate for me to walk the aisle on my own since, in the long run, I've realized I'll be on my own. I spoke to my uncle, and since we already got the reaction we wanted from my dad, he said he was fine with it. He'll just be a guest now, as he was supposed to be initially. He didn't mind at all, especially since he had been skeptical about walking me down the aisle in the first place. I also spoke to my father, but not on a phone call because that would lead to another confrontational conversation. I left him a message saying that if he wanted to attend the wedding, he was free to do so, but he didn't need to walk me down the aisle. I also told him that if he wanted to go to Hawaii with Katie instead, he was free to do that as well. However, if he made that choice, I would have to cut him out of my life for good. He has had enough chances to prove that he can treat me as a priority when it really matters, but he has failed every time. I refuse to tolerate this kind of disrespect anymore. I want to get married and be happy on my wedding day. I've spent too much time worrying about what he thinks and how other people will feel about my decisions, and it has been a waste of my time. If my dad had cared about my feelings, he never would have dropped that bomb on me just days before my wedding. If he cared, he would have apologized after I sent him that message, but he hasn't even bothered to reply. I talked to Andy about all this, and he thinks it's the right call since the wedding is just a few days away and we still haven't been able to sort things out with my dad. At this point, I don't think I have any other option. Update 2. Hey, so first things first, I got married yesterday. I still can't believe it. I'm actually married now, and along with the engagement ring on my finger, I also have a wedding band. It's surreal, and I'm so happy right now. I hate to have to think about my dad and my sister, but I owe you guys an update, especially since I kind of ranted and left in the last one. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, my father did not attend the wedding. From what I know, he chose to go to Hawaii with my sister to scatter her cat's ashes instead, which, apparently, is a normal thing to choose over your other daughter's wedding. I don't even want to get into that. Some people have criticized me for not taking my sister's depression seriously. Look, I feel bad for her, and I stand by the fact that depression is a terrible thing. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, which ironically happens to be Katie. But I don't believe her actions were driven by depression. It was her crippling need to be the center of attention that made her choose to scatter her cat's ashes in Hawaii on the day of my wedding. She could have waited a couple of days or even done it earlier, but she just had to do it on my wedding day. I refuse to believe that this is just her being depressed and acting out of it. Either way, depression is an explanation, but it's not an excuse. So yeah, I'm not making fun of her, but I also refuse to let her off easy just because she's struggling. And coming to my dad, that's just another story altogether. I don't even know what to say about him, except that he has let me down for the last time, and this time, I'm not going to forgive him. It's going to be difficult going through life without any parents in my corner, but let's be real, he has never been in my corner anyway. For him, life has always been about Katie, and I can see that crystal clear now. I was a fool to believe that things could ever change. He chose not to attend my wedding, and he was very clever about it. He didn't let me know until after the ceremony. Until then I was still confused as to whether he would attend or not, since I had left him a message earlier, but he didn't reply. I kept checking my phone, but after I had walked down the aisle and everything was done, I realized he wouldn't be showing up. It was then that he chose to text me, saying that he was in Hawaii with Katie and had decided to attend the scattering of the ashes because Katie needed him more than I did. She was more emotionally dependent on him, and he said he was sorry, but he hoped I would understand. I might have found that message meaningful if he hadn't also said that my petty and immature behavior with my uncle had put him off, and he thought it was best for us to stay apart for a while. That was another reason he wasn't attending. I'm not going to deny that it was petty, but honestly, the only reason I did that was because I had always felt ignored after my mom passed away. I'm not going to pretend that what I did wasn't immature, but what else could I have done? I just wanted to do something to piss him off, to see if he actually cared. Maybe he did, but clearly, it wasn't enough to show up for me. That message really annoyed me, especially on the day of my wedding when I just wanted to be happy. So I blocked him and moved on with my day. He had already chosen not to come to the wedding, so sending that message just to tell me he wasn't attending was pretty redundant. People at the wedding did ask why my father and sister weren't there. I chose to be completely honest and told them the real reason. I figured it reflected poorly on them, not me, so I had no reason to hide anything. Most people were speechless, and others found it quite hilarious, but in a sad way. Now the entire family knows my dad skipped my wedding to go to Hawaii with Katie to scatter her cat's ashes. He couldn't even spare one single day for me, and that is his biggest failure as a father, I think. But I still had a great time, and nothing can change that. My wedding day will always be the best day of my life so far. I get to spend the rest of my life with the man I love the most, and I've decided he will be my only family from now on. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a week since my wedding. It still feels great to say that. Anyway, Andy and I are supposed to go on our honeymoon in a couple of days, but of course, my dad and Katie just can't stand to see me happy. They decided this was the perfect time to confront me about what I had told people at the wedding about why they weren't there. 3 days ago, Katie texted me. I hadn't blocked her. I had just blocked my father. But after reading her text, I felt like blocking her as well because it was just so annoying that she felt entitled to confront me. But after reading her text, I felt like blocking her as well. Because it was just so annoying that she felt like she had the moral high ground here. Just for the record, the only reason I haven't blocked her yet is because, in case something happens to my father, I want to be able to know about it. Despite our differences, I'm sure that she would still inform me in case of an accident, illness, or whatever. Anyway, that's literally the only reason why I've still given her access to me. I know that most people would advise me to go no contact, but I don't think it's possible for me. Just because my dad has been a terrible father to me doesn't necessarily mean I have to be a terrible daughter to him. This might not make sense to a lot of people, but these are my morals, and I'm going to stick to them. So I would appreciate it if people didn't comment on this. Now, coming to the message she sent me, she said, "Hey, we just came back from Hawaii, and we have already been contacted by many of our relatives. They think that we were wrong for choosing the day of your wedding to scatter my cat's ashes. I'm not surprised that you chose to tell everybody this story and portray us in a negative way, but I'm just disappointed that you are still picking on me, even though you know I'm going through a very difficult time in my life. I really wish that you hadn't talked crap about me and Dad because we are family, and you of all people should understand that it's very difficult to lose a loved one. I really hope that you would have had more compassion for me. But anyway, that is obviously not the case. Dad has also noticed that you have blocked him, and he's very upset about that. So I think you should undo that. Honestly, all I have to say is that you need to be a little more thoughtful towards us. You can't just go through life thinking about nobody apart from yourself and expect people to be okay with that. I hope you understand what I'm getting at and apologize. Even if you don't, I'm not going to be surprised because if you're still choosing to hate on me at this time, there's very little that I can expect from you." The tone of the message itself pissed me off really badly, and the content, well, I don't even want to say anything about it because I might end up cursing her out. It was so pretentious and holier than thou that I honestly wanted to block her. But after thinking about it for a while, I decided to craft my own reply and sent it back to her. Hey Katie, I did tell our relatives why you and Dad weren't present at the wedding, and I decided to be honest about it because I'm not a liar. By deciding not to show up for my wedding, you pretty much put yourself in that position. And I think it's very unfair to expect me to cover up for you people, especially given the current circumstances, since both of you have been nothing but unkind to me. You guys couldn't even think about me on my wedding day and try to put me first just for one day, so I really don't think I have anything to apologize for. If Dad is upset about the fact that I blocked him, he probably should have thought things through earlier instead of regretting it now. I've already made up my mind, and I don't want any contact with either of you. So I would really appreciate it if you didn't contact me after this, unless it's an emergency. Then you can text or call me. But unless there's any urgent situation, I really wish that you wouldn't contact me at all since I have no interest in speaking to either you or Dad. Both of you have hurt me a lot in the past few years, and I agree with what Dad said. It would be for the best if we spent some time apart for now. I'm a married woman now, and I want to spend the next couple of years trying to enjoy my life with my husband. Right now, he is the only family that I have. I wish you both all the very best in your life. Goodbye. After showing it to Andy, I sent the message and she just replied a couple of minutes ago. She said she would respect my wishes and added that my dad is still very upset about my decision not to speak to them. But I can't help that. They brought this onto themselves. I know Katie is happy that she won't have to speak to me, and if my dad really is that upset, well, too bad. Like I said, this is his own fault. Anyway, I'm just going to try and enjoy my honeymoon now. We've been planning this for a really long time, and I deserve to have some fun now. I gifted my stepdaughter a house, but she uninvited me from her wedding. Now I'm taking back everything I gave. I, 62M, am dealing with a challenging situation with my stepdaughter. I have been married to her mother, Sarah, for 15 years. My first wife, Emily, died of cancer when I was 45. Emily and I were high school sweethearts who married for 25 beautiful years. We never had children because of Emily's health problems. After Emily died, I was devastated and devoted myself to my career as a real estate developer. 3 years later, Sarah and I met at a charity event. She was energetic, friendly, and had a 10-year-old daughter named Lily. We hit it off right away and I felt pulled to both of them. Sarah had been suffering as a single mom. Tom, Lily's biological father, left her when she was 2 years old. He'd come and go in their lives, but he never offered genuine support. I saw an opportunity to rediscover love and be the father figure Lily needed. Lily and I developed a close relationship over time. I assisted her with her homework, went to her school functions, and was present for every milestone. I paid for her college education so she may have every option in life. Lily is now 25, and she is engaged to a nice young man named Mike. To show my support and affection, I decided to give them a house as a pre-wedding gift. It's a lovely home in a pleasant area, ideal for beginning their new life. However, when the wedding invitations arrived, I was astonished and extremely disappointed to learn that I was not invited. At first I assumed it was a mistake. Surely, after all these years, Lily would not remove me from her special day. I am at a loss. I've always treated Lily like my own daughter, and I assumed she saw me as a parent. Now I'm wondering if I should take back the house I gave them. It's not about the money. I'm lucky that finances aren't an issue. It is the underlying principle. I feel misled and underappreciated. Am I overreacting? Should I confront Lily about this, or simply accept her decision and move on, even if it means returning my gift? I recall when I first met Lily. She was timid and apprehensive, hiding between Sarah's legs. But she eventually opened up to me. I remember teaching her how to ride a bike and seeing the satisfaction in her eyes when she eventually balanced without training wheels. I was there on her first day of high school, reassuring her when she was concerned about fitting in. When she suffered her first heartbreak at 16, I was the one who sat with her, offering ice cream and a listening ear. We had our own traditions too. Every Sunday, we had a family game night. Lily insisted on playing the banker in Monopoly, and we would giggle at how serious she took her position. On her 18th birthday, I surprised her with a car. Not fancy, but dependable. The sight of utter excitement on her face when I handed her the keys is something I'll always remember. When Lily was accepted to college, we celebrated as a family. I recall her hugging me firmly and whispering "Thank you, Dad" into my ear. It was the first time she'd called me Dad, and it meant everything to me. All of these recollections make the current situation even more agonizing. How could she forget what we'd been through together? The thought of not being there on her wedding day, not leading her down the aisle, not having that father-daughter dance is painful. I have always thought that family is more than just blood. It's about love, support, and sticking with each other through thick and thin. I assumed Lily felt the same way. Now I'm doubting everything. Part of me wants to face her immediately and demand an explanation. But another part of me is scared of what I may hear. What if she claims she never truly saw me as a father? What if this is her way of letting me know I'm not family? I chatted to Sarah about it, but she appears hesitant to get engaged. She thinks I should talk to Lily directly, but how can I when she doesn't even answer my phone? The house I gave them was meant to represent my love and support for their new life together. Now it serves as a sad reminder of my exclusion from that existence. Taking it back feels petty, yet leaving it implies that I accept her decision to cut me off. I never imagined I would be in this position. When I married Sarah and became a part of Lily's life, I made a full commitment to becoming a father figure. For 15 years, I have loved her as if she were my own. It's crushing to watch something so readily discarded. Is it wrong for me to decide to take back the house? Is it inappropriate to seek recognition for the part I've played in her life? Should I just let her have her wedding, even if it means I won't be there? I'm torn and could need some outside perspective. Update 1. It has been a week since my last post, and I would like to provide an update on the situation. Thank you for your guidance and support. It's been a difficult period, and your feedback has been invaluable. After much thought, I decided to address Lily about her choice to exclude me from the wedding. However, this turned out to be more challenging than I expected. Lily appeared to be avoiding me. She did not return my calls or react to my texts. It was as if she had unexpectedly become a stranger. Frustrated and hurt, I looked to my wife Sarah for answers. What she said left me stunned. Apparently, Lily wishes to invite her biological father, Tom, to the wedding. The same man who abandoned her and Sarah when she was a kid. Sarah revealed that Lily had been in contact with Tom for approximately a year. He unexpectedly reappeared in her life, claiming to have changed and wanted to make amends. According to Sarah, Tom indicated a wish to be a part of Lily's life again and to lead her down the aisle on her wedding day. I was stunned. For years, Tom had been nothing but a disappointment for Lily. I remember the nights I spent comforting her after he broke yet another promise to visit. I was present for her first heartbreak, her high school graduation, and her college acceptance, all of the events Tom decided to miss. Tom's record as a father is far from impressive. He never paid child support, rarely showed up on birthdays or holidays, and appeared to be more concerned with his own life than with being a parent. I can't help but wonder what's behind his abrupt change of heart. The discovery that Lily had been in covert communication with Tom for a year stung almost as much as being denied entry to the wedding. I assumed Lily and I had a tight relationship, one in which she could come to me with anything. Finding out she had been keeping this from me for so long seemed like a betrayal. I'm attempting to grasp Lily's point of view. I understand how great the need to have a relationship with one's biological parent might be, but after everything we've gone through together, and all the love and support I've given her, how can she just abandon me? I recall one particular instance when Lily was 14. Tom agreed to take her to a father-daughter dance at her school. Lily was so excited that she spent weeks looking for the ideal dress. Tom did not show up for the dance, and there was no call or explanation. I found Lily crying in her room, still dressed. Without hesitation, I dressed on a suit and we headed to the dance together. We had a great time, and Lily appeared to forget about Tom's absence. That night, when I tucked her into bed, she hugged me and exclaimed, "You're the best dad ever." How could she forget things like this? There was also a moment when Lily required braces. Tom had pledged to pay for them, but when the time arrived, he could not be found. I stepped in without hesitation to ensure Lily received the necessary dental care. For 2 years, I drove her to every orthodontist visit, bought her ice cream after particularly difficult adjustments, and celebrated with her when the braces were finally removed. These recollections exacerbate the misery of the current circumstance. How can Lily pick Tom over me after all we've been through? I've been present for every significant event in her life, whereas Tom has been nothing but a series of unfulfilled promises. I have concluded that I need to speak with Lily personally. I cannot let this situation continue without confronting it head-on. I've sent her a message asking to meet, emphasizing that if she doesn't accept, I'll have to make some difficult decisions about my involvement in her life and the wedding gift. I'm hoping she agrees to meet. I need to comprehend her reasons and communicate how much her actions have wounded me. Am I wrong to seek this confrontation? Should I just let her have her wedding, even if it means I won't be there? As I await Lily's reaction, I find myself reflecting on our connection. I remember spending hours in parking lots teaching her how to drive my old sedan. I remember the nights we spent working on her college applications, and the pleasure I had when she was accepted to her ideal institution. I remember the day she moved into her dorm, hugging me farewell with tears in her eyes and murmuring, "I'm going to miss you, Dad." These recollections make her current acts even more perplexing. How can she so quickly abandon years of love and support? Is the pull of biology truly so powerful, or have I unintentionally failed her as a father figure? I'm also dealing with my feelings for Tom. Part of me is irritated with Dad for swooping in now, after years of absence, and upsetting our family dynamic. Another part of me is anxious about Lily. What happens if he disappoints her again? Will I have to pick up the pieces once more? As I prepare to confront Lily, I'm filled with mixed emotions. I'm hurt, furious, and bewildered, but deep down, I still love her. I want the best for her, but I also need to safeguard my emotions. I'll update after speaking with Lily. Thank you for your ongoing support during this tough time. Update 2. Hello everyone. I'm here with another update on the situation with Lily, my stepdaughter. A lot has transpired since my last post, and I'm still absorbing it. Lily finally consented to meet with me following my ultimatum. We met in a neighborhood coffee shop, which provided a neutral setting for what I expected to be a difficult conversation. As soon as we sat down, I could sense shame in her eyes, but also a stubbornness I'd never seen before. I began by stating how saddened I was by her decision to exclude me from the wedding. I reminded her of the years we'd spent together, and how I'd been there for her when Tom wasn't. I informed her, "Lily, I have been there for you since you were 10 years old. I assisted you with your homework, taught you how to drive, and supported you throughout college. I have treated you like my own daughter. How can you push me aside now?" Lily's remark shocked me. She said, "I know you've done a lot for me, and I appreciate it, but Tom is my true father. He wants to make things right, and I want to give him the opportunity." I couldn't believe what I heard. I questioned her. What about all the times he failed you? What about all those birthdays he missed? What about the child support that he never paid? Does none of this matter? She responded, "People may change. He is different today. He wants to be a part of my life." I could feel my anger mounting. I told her that it was I who had sponsored her education and been present at all of her life's major moments. And now that she was capable and established in her life, she wanted to ask the man who had abandoned her to lead her down the aisle. Lily then dropped another shocker. She explained, "Tom has agreed to contribute to the wedding expenditures. He wants to take responsibility." That was the final straw for me. I told her, "Fine, if Tom wants to be your father now, let him accept all of the obligations that come with it. I will not be paying for anything related to this wedding, and the house I gifted you should also be considered off the table." Lily's face fell. I could tell she had not expected this reaction. She attempted to backtrack, claiming she still wanted me in her life, just not at the wedding. But for me, the damage had already been done. I stepped up to depart, but first I told her, "Lily, I have always considered you my daughter. I believed you felt the same way about me as your father. I suppose I was incorrect. I hope Tom meets your expectations this time." With that, I departed the coffee shop. The drive home was a haze. When I returned home, I informed Sarah what had transpired. She was unhappy, but she acknowledged Lily's wish to have her biological father in her life. She did, however, agree that Lily's actions were both painful and unfair. I've subsequently called my lawyer to begin the process of reclaiming the house. It is not about the money, but about the principle. I can't in good conscience give such a valuable thing to someone who doesn't consider me family. As I ponder on our talk, I realize how much Lily has changed. The stubborn young woman in the coffee shop appeared so unlike the tiny child who would run to me for comfort after a nightmare, or the adolescent who proudly showed me her first A+ on a difficult math test. I recall the day Lily graduated from high school. As she came across the stage to receive her graduation, she smiled broadly and gave me a thumbs up. Later, at her graduation party, she hugged me firmly and said, "I couldn't have done this without you, Dad." Where is Lily now? I can't help but think about how many times Tom has let Lily down in the past. He had offered to take her camping for her 13th birthday, but then canceled at the last minute. I ended up bringing her instead, showing her how to pitch a tent and cook marshmallows over a campfire. Or the time he promised to help her move into her college dorm but didn't show up. I was there, hauling boxes and helping her paint her new room. Now Tom swoops in with promises of transformation and financial assistance, and he's suddenly the father she wants by her side. It feels like a slap in the face after years of supporting her through thick and thin. Part of me worries if I'm being overly harsh. Should I be more accepting of Lily's wish to establish a relationship with her biological father? But then I remember the pain in Sarah's eyes when Tom abandoned them years ago, and how hard we've fought to create a loving family. Lily seemed to be throwing everything out on a whim. I understand that some people may think I'm being petty or overreacting by taking back the house and withholding financial support for the wedding, but from my standpoint, Lily has made her decision. Despite our shared history, she chose Tom over me. It hurts, but I must protect myself emotionally and financially. Should I have been more accepting of Lily's desire to reconcile with her biological father? I'm still conflicted, but I believe I need to stand my stance. I will provide an update if there are any notable developments. Thank you for your support and wisdom during this tough time. Update 3. Hello everyone, it's been 6 months since my last update, and I'd like to discuss what has transpired since then. A lot has changed, and I'm still coming to terms with it. Following the altercation with Lily, I followed through on my plan to take back the house and withdraw my financial assistance for the wedding. It was a hard time. Sarah was caught between supporting her daughter and recognizing my pain. Our relationship deteriorated and Sarah eventually decided to leave temporarily to be with Lily during the wedding preparations. The wedding proceeded as scheduled, with Tom leading Lily down the aisle. I wasn't there of course, but I heard about it through common friends. They described the ceremony as beautiful, but there was a palpable sense of anxiety. For long, I didn't hear from Lily or Sarah. I immersed myself into my work, hoping to distract myself from the grief of losing my family. I will not lie, it was a lonely and tough period. Then about a week ago Sarah called me. Her voice was shaky and I knew she had been sobbing. She admitted, "We made a tremendous error. We're very sorry." Sarah went on to relate what transpired following the wedding. Tom had stayed for almost a month, playing the doting father. He did provide some money to the wedding expenditures, as promised, but as the bills piled up and the reality of continued financial responsibility dawned on him, Tom began to remove himself. Tom vanished within 2 months after the wedding, like he had done years before. He stopped answering phones, avoided Lily and Sarah, and effectively disappeared from their lives once more. Lily was devastated. She honestly believed Tom had changed and wanted to be a part of her life. The realization that he had let her down again, especially after she had put forth so much effort to include him, was painful. Sarah explained that Lily had been too embarrassed to contact me herself. She felt bad about how she had treated me and feared that I would not want to hear from her. Sarah stated, "She sees what a mistake she made. She misses you so badly." I listened to Sarah's remarks with mixed emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. I had been correct about Tom all along. However, a larger part of me felt melancholy. Lily was sad because her biological father had let her down yet again. "I'm sorry for the anguish this has caused our family." I told Sarah, "I appreciate you telling me this, but the damage is done. I can't just pretend the last 6 months haven't happened." Sarah pleaded with me to rethink and give Lily another opportunity. But I remained firm. I added, "I'm not saying I'll never forgive Lily, but right now I need some time." She made her decision, and now we all have to deal with the repercussions. We concluded the call on a melancholy tone. I told Sarah she was free to return whenever she was ready, but I needed more time before I could consider recreating a connection with Lily. As I sit here writing this final update, I am still absorbing everything that has transpired. Part of me wants to reach out to Lily, soothe her, and assure her that everything will be fine. But a part of me is still hurting and resentful. I know some of you believe I'm being too harsh, that I should forgive and forget, but trust is a fragile thing that, once destroyed, is difficult to recover. I need time to heal, to choose whether and how I can move ahead from this. For now, I'm concentrating on myself. I'm seeing a therapist to work through my emotions and I'm attempting to reconstruct my life without Lily in it. It's not easy, but I think it's vital. Thank you for your continued support along this journey. Your suggestions and insights have been invaluable. I'm not sure what the future contains, but I'm preparing to confront it with bravery and dignity. My fiancée revealed she's bisexual after a solo wedding trip and now everything's falling apart. Original post August 10, 2024. Betty, 27F, and I, 30M, got engaged in January after dating for a couple of years. Our plan was to get married next year when we had saved enough money for the wedding. Shortly after getting engaged we moved in together at the end of January. In May, Betty was a bridesmaid for one of her friends. I was unable to attend due to my job and the fact it was a 5-day trip. Betty had a great time reconnecting with some of her old friends, but a couple of weeks after she got back she became moody and withdrawn. I was relieved when she made an appointment with a therapist since she hadn't opened up to me about what was troubling her. After about 5 or 6 sessions, she sat me down one Saturday morning so we could talk. Betty had been raised in a very conservative household and had to suppress her desires until she moved out to go to college. Even then, certain ideas she denied and refused to embrace. At the wedding, she was introduced to the wife of one of her girlfriends from college, and it triggered a lot of repressed desires over the days they all hung out before the wedding. She told me she felt romantic and sexual attraction to women as well as men and realized she was bisexual. I told her I was happy she finally felt safe in sharing this with me, and it didn't change how I felt about her. It was a very emotional moment. She asked me how I felt about her exploring her sexuality now that it was out in the open. I said I was open to exploring it with her and possibly having a threesome with another woman to let her have that experience. She wanted a one-on-one experience with another woman and felt she couldn't do that with me. I told her that sounded more like an affair and something I wasn't comfortable with. I asked her if she wanted to cancel the wedding and maybe separate while she figured out what she wanted to do. She was adamant that was not what she wanted, and she was still very much in love with me and still wanted to get married, but she felt like she had to explore these feelings she was embracing before we settled down together. I asked her if she had done anything inappropriate at the wedding and cheated on me. I asked if she had someone in mind or had been talking to someone since she came back. She admitted to dancing with a girl at the reception and they kissed at the end of the night, but nothing else happened. But she denied talking to anyone or pre-planning anything. She knew this was a lot to throw on my plate all at once, and she didn't expect an answer right away. She just asked that I keep an open mind and keep talking about it. I couldn't promise anything, but I agreed to do some research and talk to a workmate that has an open marriage to see how they cope. I did warn her if I found out she lied or was doing anything behind my back, there would be no second chances and I would leave. My workmate has been super helpful and open about their relationship. My brother got me into a support group that has helped me come to terms with our relationship changes. I'm burning my way through my second book and sat Betty down Thursday night to check in and talk about moving forward. I found a couples therapist. I gave her the book I had finished, and I told her we should postpone the wedding for 6 months and then decide if that's the path we are still on. I was on a roll when she stopped me and asked me if I was planning on dating other people. Like that never occurred to her that I would be dating as well. She kind of shut down after that, barely giving one-word answers when I would ask her something. I think the longest sentence I got was, "I just don't know." She has been like that for 24 hours now, like she is lost in a fog. I'm just bracing myself for the inevitable flood of emotions. I would have thought she would be happy that I was considering opening our relationship. Add-in. My brother came out as gay when I was 16 and my parents were very supportive, so I grew up in a very different household than my girlfriend. Apology. The second half of my post was written much later than the first half, and after a few drinks. Rereading it made it clear I should have waited till this morning before posting it. Sorry. Update. Saturday night her fog lifted and things got pretty heated. She said that the open relationship was my way of punishing her and being vindictive by dating other women. She was just asking for some grace to explore her feelings. I replied that she showed almost no remorse for cheating on me and instead expected an open-ended hall pass to do so again. I told her our friends had told me she asked them not to say anything about what happened at the wedding, so I would probably never know the full truth and just had to accept it was worse than she admitted to. I asked if she thought it was fair to go have sex with other people while I waited by the door like some lovesick puppy who was expected just to wag his tail when she decided to come home and show me some attention. It devolved after that, and some hurtful things were said by us both. I finally gave her 3 options if she wanted to move forward. Monogamy, postpone the wedding and go to couples counseling. No experimenting. When we get to a good place, then go ahead with the wedding with a prenup to protect me if she changes her mind and/or cheats again. Open relationship. We can both date who we want and she can figure out her sexuality on her own terms. In a year or so we can see if marriage still seems like a good option if we are still together. Full separation. She moves out and we can each be free to live our lives as we see fit. If when she decides she wants monogamy with me if I haven't moved on, then we can try option #1. But it would be a new beginning, not just picking up where we left off. She decided she needed some space to think things out and is going to stay with friends for a couple of days. I told her before she left that if she accidentally cheated while she was gone to not come back except to pick up the rest of her things. This morning I got a text from her, "I'm so sorry." She didn't answer when I asked her what she meant and my call went to voicemail. I'm not going to reach out to her again and I will wait to let her contact me when she is ready. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Looks like your partner has been a bit self-centered about this. Good idea to take your time regarding your engagement. The death of exclusivity, even as a hypothetical, can be a pretty destabilizing thing for an established mono relationship. Keep talking. You seem to be handling this very well, somewhat better than her I think. OP. I tried to handle this respectfully, but it seems fair to her as an open pass for her but not for me. I'm expected to support her while she has sex and possibly develop feelings for someone else and just smile and nod. And then she got upset when I had to remind her she was the one that cheated. I just finished printing out cards to send to everyone. We sent the save the date notices to advise them we are canceling the wedding. Not sure how I'm going to respond when they start asking why. The cards I'm sending out just have due to new circumstances on them. Comment 2. If the person asking is part of the group who withheld information from you, consider telling them the truth, that your fiancé cheated on you and her friends colluded to keep it from you. Consider telling that friend what you think of them for not having your back at such an important moment. OP. I had that conversation with the friend who confirmed what Betty had told me. When I questioned him later, he said Betty had made them promise not to tell me on the trip back home. He and his wife and one of the other bridesmaids were the only ones that saw them kissing. He also told me who the other woman was. She lives in a different state. Update August 18, 2024. Previously, my fiancée announced she was bisexual and had made out with a woman at her friend's wedding. On Wednesday, Betty went to her previously scheduled appointment with her therapist and told her what happened between us. Not sure what all was said, but she called me on the way to her friend's house apologizing for some of the things she said and wanted to come home and talk things out. I told her to stay at her friend's house tonight and think about what she wanted, and she could come home Thursday and we could sit down and work things out. On Thursday, we met at the house and talked over dinner. We both apologized for getting heated and saying some unfair things to each other. After talking to her therapist and having several conversations with her best friend over the last few days, she has decided not to explore her bisexual urges. The idea of a truly open relationship where I was free to sleep with other people terrified her, and getting married was more important than chasing the rainbow. Her original idea had been just a free pass to see if she was missing something in her life and how important it was to her. I asked what she was asking for an ONS, just dating a woman, or having a full relationship. She couldn't tell me exactly what she wanted. I said that didn't sound very monogamous to me or very fair. She agreed, and that was why she was giving up on exploring those feelings. Next, she brought up the notes I sent out canceling our save the date notices for our wedding day. She said she was getting all kinds of calls about what happened and was caught unaware about what they were even talking about at first. She was upset that I did that without talking to her first. I reminded her that she loved 2 grenades in my lap, coming out as bisexual, and that she cheated on me, then left and wouldn't talk with me except for a cryptic "I'm so sorry" text followed by silence. While I never said anything other than we were having issues and had to postpone the wedding, evidently there was speculation that she had cheated on me. She switched gears and said we could still get back on track and get married next spring. No, because now when one of us is out of town, my mind will be thinking about you cheating again, especially after coming out and wanting to have an affair to explore your sexuality. I said maybe after couples therapy we could get back to a good place again, but not by the end of the year, and it would be foolish to start planning and making financial commitments before we even knew if therapy was going to work. Plus, I wanted a prenup to protect everything I brought into the marriage as well as my future retirement savings. Plus, she would forfeit any equity if we bought a house. When she protested, I said if you plan to be faithful and not change your mind later, then it would never be a thing. Just something to give me some peace of mind. It's been an ongoing conversation for the last few days. Betty wants to rug sweep the incident at the wedding and move forward with our wedding. Exploring her sexuality is not worth sacrificing our relationship, in her opinion. For now, we are back together and planning on counseling soon. In a post-clarity moment, I realize I rushed to embrace the idea of an open relationship to allow Betty the freedom to explore her new feelings, and I'm not as willing now to consider that option. I think separation is the better option, breaking up if you will, till we both decide what direction our future lies and if it is with each other. It's not what I want, but I also don't want to spend the next 3-5 years together only for her to change her mind or cheat on me one day. Relevant comments. Oop clarifies the chasing the rainbow comment and if he has a problem with her sexuality. Chasing the rainbow was her analogy, not mine. I didn't have a problem with her sexuality. The problem I had was she cheated. Granted, she only made out with someone and wanted permission to have sex with someone else. Male or female, that is unacceptable in what I thought was our monogamous relationship. Being bisexual doesn't give you the right to have sex with someone else while you're already in an exclusive relationship. It just means you are attracted to twice as many people. I do want to be with her and support her, but that doesn't mean I support her dating other people to explore her sexuality while in a relationship with me. OOP on the best scenario is breaking up. Most of the scenarios in my head end up in disaster. Breaking up and letting her find her center might be the best option. If in 3 6 months we both find we want to start over, then maybe it stands a better chance than us trying to just move forward the way we are now. But in 3-6 months I think I will have moved on to something less complicated. The fact that she thought I wouldn't be enough and had to go experience something different to fulfill herself could be a deal breaker for me. Final comment from OOP: we have counseling scheduled to see what is best for us. Until we firmly resolve this issue, we won't be getting married. I don't want to have to deal with cheating or her wanting to open the marriage years down the line and then possibly getting divorced. New updates. What a crappy week. Counseling started badly, walked into the office and saw a large pride flag on the wall. Our therapist was very biased towards my girlfriend's predicament. Glossed right over the cheating and into how I needed to better support Betty's awakening and support her journey to blah blah blah. Betty is the one who's confused and I'm not giving her a safe place to explore who she is. Nothing about my feelings or needs was addressed. To make matters worse, when the therapist was piling on me, I looked to Betty to stand up or say something positive for me and I got nothing. That part hurt me the most and I pretty much shut down for the remainder of the session. Toward the end, the therapist did try to engage with me because you could tell she knew had completely lost me. On the drive home, Betty tried to talk to me and I gave her the 3 answers I kept repeating to the therapist: sure, nope, and maybe. This was the therapist her individual therapist recommended us to. The next day I got a call from Betty's mom at my work wanting to know why we were postponing the wedding and that her family and friends had already started making plans. I told her she needed to take that up with her daughter. She kept badgering me until I finally told her Betty made out with someone at her friend's wedding and that was why things were on hold, and then I hung up on her. Less than an hour later I got a call from Betty demanding to know what I told her mom. I said you kissed someone at a wedding and we were trying to work through it and that I didn't mention Betty coming out to me. I told her she needed to sit her mom down and tell her the whole truth, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So I get this text from her mom telling me I need to suck it up and move past this and that I might even be at fault for not going to the wedding with her. Huge text giving me what for and trying to tell me what I need to do. I showed the text to Betty when she got home from work and said she needed to do something about her mom or I would enlighten her with the full story of all our problems the next time she tried to tear me a new one. Betty said she would handle her mom and made me promise to give her some time to tell her mom everything. Also this week Betty has gotten very protective of her phone. Yeah, major red flag. I went to charge my phone and unplugged hers to plug mine in and she almost flew across the room to practically snatch her phone out of my hand. I was able to sneak a look at her phone later while she was asleep, only to find she had changed her access code, something which she hadn't done since we had been together. I went online and looked at our phone bill and there were many lengthy calls to a Colorado area code, which I have found out is where the girl she kissed was from. I am just mentally exhausted at this point, the gaslighting, lying and just feeling like I am treading water all the time. Lately, when we've been intimate, there is a lack of passion in her that was there before all this. I feel love-bombed without the feeling. Feels like just hollow words and empty gestures. Tomorrow we are going to a cookout at her parents' house. I am going to try and keep my cool and not say anything, crossing my fingers. But when we get back I am telling Betty I'm done. I'll give her the choice of keeping the apartment or moving out. She will be free to explore and find what truly makes her happy, just won't be me. I came clean with my parents and a few friends about this whole mess. My tribe is ready to help support me and help with the move when I need them. Dad vetoed Mom's offer to move back home and said what I really needed was a new puppy, definitely too old to live with my retired parents. Feels weirdly peaceful now that I've made my mind up. To all of you who told me so, you were right, time to move on with my life. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'd be tempted to leave a review on the therapist somewhere. Something short like, my fiancé cheated on me at a wedding and continues to call the person she cheated with, and this therapist told me I needed to support my fiancé's exploration of other people rather than addressing the betrayal. At the very least I'd want to make sure the therapist knew this would be why we wouldn't be coming back. Therapists can't improve without knowing when they've fucked up. And I guarantee you this therapist fucked up. Anyone in your personal life you tell about the infidelity, I'd recommend clarifying that it wasn't just a one-time thing and that she continued to call and have an emotional affair with the person. Sorry that your fiancé is literally actively having an emotional affair right this very moment, and the therapist you were sent to was the wrong choice. I wish you luck. OOP, I like your review but I am unsure where I would post it. Our therapist definitely had an agenda, but if we don't show up for the next session she already knows the reason. After browbeating me for most of the session she realized I checked out and spent the last 10 and 15 minutes trying to get me to re-engage. She tried to shake my hand as I left but I just silently got up and left her office. I haven't confronted Betty about the phone calls yet but I plan to ask her about them tonight before I tell her we are done. My family and friends, who I told yesterday, knows about everything, including the calls. For now anyway, my stress levels are surprisingly low now that I know what I want to do. My sister will be at my house when we get back and plans to stay at least the night while I tell Betty my decision. Update 3. Betty and I returned early from a cookout at her parents' house. I had planned for my sister to be at our house when we got back as a witness but had to wait a couple of hours for her to show up. I got us all in the living room and told Betty I couldn't do it anymore and was throwing in the towel. I said I had lost all trust in her and couldn't see a way forward and that the best choice was to just go our separate ways. Betty couldn't understand what I was saying and that she had been honest since her confession about what happened at the wedding. I asked if she had been in contact with the girl she kissed at the wedding and she denied it. I asked to see her phone and she refused, saying it would violate her privacy and the privacy of the people she had talked to. Fine, so who did you call with a 720 area code, and maybe I should call and see who answers? Doesn't really matter because it proves my point. I gave her a choice of moving out or staying and I would move out. I also said I would give her what she had contributed to our savings account for the wedding. She tried to get my sister to leave or get me alone to talk, but I told her I had been advised to have a witness present just in case. She went from crying to being angry, and after an hour and a half, she finally had a calm conversation about everything. We talked until almost midnight. This morning Betty decided to move back to her parents temporarily and the three of us packed up her things. While we waited for her dad and brother to come get her things, she tried to get me to go to a different counselor and give therapy another chance, but I said it was just a waste of time. I could never trust her again and that was no way to live. Not much of an ending. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Bloody hell. It's so hard to believe that your wife continued to lie to you to the very end. Can I ask that once she calmed down and talked until almost midnight, did she ultimately tell you the truth and confess everything she's been doing since that kiss? If so, how on earth did she try to justify to you all the lies she's been telling you? Or at least tell you why she has lied to you all this time? OOP. Girlfriend, not wife. She never did come completely clean. I think she is holding on to hope that I will change my mind. She is confused and conflicted. If she told me the truth, then I think she is afraid I would leave her for sure. Her words were, "I only hid things to protect your feelings." Comment 2. Have you spoken to her dad and brother? Or the friends that covered for her to see what she's been telling them and what they think of everything? I'd hate for her to paint you like the bad guy and claim this is all because of the kiss and not because of everything else. OOP. I did not talk with her brother or her dad when they came over. The friends that covered for her know almost everything from my point of view. Betty hasn't talked much with them since the wedding. The husband was especially upset that she had remained in touch with the woman she kissed, and his wife has been consoling, saying it was lucky I found out now rather than later. OOP on trying to save the relationship. At first I thought this was just a speed bump and something we could get past. But it became a sinkhole that just got deeper and deeper. I believe her first therapist got her started down the wrong path. But in the end she just became selfish and self-absorbed, which really turned me off. It kills me to think she threw away what we had and all the plans we had made. It was like she became a completely different person in such a short time. OOP on his relationship with her parents and changing the locks and the friends group. I had a great relationship with her family. It went south with her mom when I postponed the wedding. Her mom was all wrapped up in planning the wedding and was almost too involved. So when I pulled the plug, she took it hard, almost personally. I got everything changed but the locks, waiting on the landlord for that. Definitely calling some friends after this. Most of my core group have been pretty solid through all of the drama. More on cutting back the friend group. No, not completely. They are part of a larger friend group. I keep my distance but try to remain polite. The rest of the group knows they kept the secret from me and they have gotten some grief over it. They both have been remorseful and have supported me as things have played out. The wife was friends with Betty and still talks with her quite a bit. The husband and I were really close, but I don't engage much with him anymore unless it's in the group setting. Final comments from OOP. I dropped a box with some things of hers we missed and some of her mail at her work today. She wanted to talk and possibly meet for dinner to talk, but I told her we just need to move on and leave. I have blocked her on everything and just want to put everything behind me. Well, she's gone for good. All of her stuff is out of the apartment and she got her part of the money we were saving for the wedding. I've blocked her on everything and have no plans to contact her again. I don't need closure, apologies, or explanations. She has made several attempts to reach out to me through friends and at work. The people at work know not to bother me and don't even take messages from her anymore. The friends I politely tell why I won't take her back and they understand and drop it usually. I've had to block a couple of people who keep after me to talk with her. My entitled mom tried to take my house for my pregnant sister, claiming she deserves it more than I do. I am a boy who is 31 years old, And I have a sister who is 28 years old. He has always been my mother's favorite child, but he has never been my father's favorite child. In the years that I was a teenager, my parents divorced because my mother had an affair with a former boyfriend from high school. Unfortunately, my sister was her little mini-me, and she has always been domineering, manipulative, and narcissistic. She has always presented herself in this manner. Additionally, it appeared as though our mother believed that she had complete control over me. When she snapped her fingers, she would give me orders like a dog. She would do this consistently. Despite the fact that it was humiliating, my sister never stopped supporting her. It should come as no surprise that following the divorce of our parents, I moved in with my father on a full-time basis, while my sister continued to reside with my mother. Unless it was about money, the two of them were very similar to one another. And they did not communicate with my father very often. In spite of the fact that I am more like my father, he was more business-oriented and started teaching me how to handle his field of work when I was 16 years old for the first time. I became fairly skilled at it, and after working for my father for a period of 12 years, I was promoted to the position of partner in his company. A terrible event occurred approximately 8 months ago, and everything were going swimmingly up until that point. My father's immune system had been compromised for a significant portion of his life due to his heavy smoking habit, and he passed away at the age of 60 after contracting C-19 a few years before his death. After my father's burial, which was held in a socially distant location, I finally got to meet my mother and sister for the first time in years through a video call. It was my father's decision to be cremated, and he was buried at a nearby cemetery. Hence, there was neither a body nor a casket there. Despite the fact that my sister seemed to be in mourning, my mother remained nonchalant during the entire process, which surprised me. When she last saw my father, she yelled at him that he owed her more money and threatened to sue him, to which he laughed. She then threatened to start a lawsuit against him. In terms of alimony and child support, he had simply paid the minimum amount that was mandated by the law. He even made a contribution of $30,000 to the education fund for my sister. However, a judge's order meant that he was no longer legally had to provide my mother money 10 years after the divorce. This legal obligation had been lifted. Not even close to being broke. She has been working at the same job for about 30 years. She is the owner of the old family home that we used to share, and she routinely leases out 2 of the rooms in the house to use as Airbnb rentals. She does not have any problems with her finances. The reading of my father's will took place after the funeral. Apparently, he was under the impression that if his habit of smoking excessively would not end his life, then something else would, and he even laughed about it on a video that had been recording beforehand. To a large extent, he left everything to me, including his home, all of his assets, and the majority of the income from his business. In addition to around $10,000 in cash, he left my sister a Nissan Altima from the year 2015. In addition to a few other goods that she had claimed to be hers since the divorce, my mother was only given a sum of $1,000. Additionally, I was given the remaining portion of it, and my girlfriend is currently residing with me in the house that my father had bequeathed to me. Following the completion of 2 years of community college, my sister moved in with her boyfriend and began working online part-time for a number of years. A heartbreaking miscarriage occurred at the time period, despite the fact that she became pregnant. Due to the fact that we had almost little communication with one another and no one informed me of this, I did not become aware of it until after the funeral. When lockdown occurred, her boyfriend's job began to gradually downsize, and soon he was only able to work part-time. This brought about a negative impact on both of their finances, to the point where he finally informed her that she needed to look for better employment as well because he was looking for a second job. After then, she fell pregnant once more. Despite the fact that she and her partner have taken precautions, others continue to refer to her child as a miraculous baby. A knock on my door came as a complete surprise to me one evening. As soon as I responded, both my mother and my sister greeted me with a frigid reception. Both of them entered without anyone asking them to, and they immediately made themselves at home in my living room. A look of bewilderment was exchanged between my girlfriend and I questioned as to the reason why they had brought themselves to visit. It appeared as though my sister was giving herself a tour of my home as she was laughing and looking around, opening doors, and opening doors. The request for a refreshing bottle of water was made by my mother, who had just sat down on my sofa and reached out with her fingers. After my girlfriend had gotten the water for her, I questioned as to the reason that they were in this location. It appeared as though my sister was overjoyed, but she chose to ignore me and proceed with her investigation of my home. A short while later, I was able to hear her exclaim, "Mommy, it's perfect," from the opposite end of the corridor. Yes, she continues to refer to her as Mommy. My mother ultimately stood out and said, "Well, I think it's time you did your brotherly duty." To which I reacted, "What? I was surprised by her statement. My mother continued by saying, "Now that your father has passed away, this house ought to have been given to me because I was his only spouse. However, you are still able to make the necessary repairs at this time. It is possible for you to get a brand new home because you generate a lot of money. This one is particularly significant for your sister because she is the one who is actually carrying the baby that is on the way. On the other hand, if you are adamant about remaining, you could just live in a single room and pay for all of the expenses until you make the decision to leave." After reading a sufficient amount of Reddit, my girlfriend and I were able to determine where this was headed and what would occur if I allowed it to continue. I suppose you could say that we were mentally prepared for what was to come. I inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly before uttering out loud, "That is not effing happening. Especially in my own home, you do not have the authority to boss me around. And yeah, I do make a lot of money, but just like my father, I'm going to put it away until I really need it, even though you don't seem to care about it." "Stop!" my mother yelled as she began to lash out at me with her fingers, just like she had done in the past. "It is me, your mother. Because I am the one who brought you into this world and because I am the one who holds authority here, you will do as I say. God is what I am to you. In other words, when I say jump, you respond by asking, how high? In all actuality, this house belongs to me, and your sister will be living here. The following is an official notice of eviction. On the other hand, because I am a good person, I will give you 2 weeks to start packing your belongings and transferring the deed to me. I have a thought that goes something like this. This can't possibly be true. Then, however, I reached for my mobile phone and started making calls. Suddenly, my mother jumped up and asked, "What are you doing?" while she was standing there. I answered by saying, "I'm gonna do what I should have done as soon as this started. I'm calling the cops to get you out of my house." My phone was eventually knocked out of my hands as she started swiping back and forth toward me. After that, she made an attempt to walk on it, but I was able to grasp it before she could do so. "That's it. If you don't leave, I'll force you out." My mother gave me a slap across the cheek and I returned the favor by hitting her back with a backhand blow that was twice as powerful, causing her to fall back down onto the couch. She yelled, "How dare you?" while placing her hand over her face, which was reddening and covered with makeup. She was completely taken aback by the situation. I went back to dialing my phone and informed her that I would call the authorities to remove her from the premises if she did not cooperate with my request to leave. I was in the middle of a conversation with my sister when she suddenly jumped in between us, stretched out her arms, and told me to do the right thing for once in my life and be a good big brother. I lost my temper and yelled out, "Oh, so you think I'm a terrible sibling? I have been required to work for a living ever since I was a very young teenager. I was responsible for all of the housekeeping, while you spent the entire day sitting on your butts, either playing video games on your computer or chatting with your circle of friends. And you would take the money that I had worked so hard to get in order to go shopping after you had already spent all of your allowance. You are nothing but a thief and a piece of a leech. Absolutely nothing is owed to you. I want both of you to leave this place as soon as possible before I dial the final number." For the first time, my sister started crying like a baby and said, "Mommy, please make him stop." After that, my mother started giving her a death gaze, after which she began hugging her and caressing her cheeks. After that, she mentioned, "You know, if you do call the cops, I can just tell them you hit me." It appeared as though she had become more intelligent. In addition, who knows, maybe I'll let everyone know that you wanted to do something far worse to a pregnant woman who was in need of assistance. It is not something that I believe would be beneficial for you to do. It was with a raised hand that I was able to interrupt her and say, "Just stop." During the entire time my girlfriend has been recording, in case you haven't noticed previously. This indicates that we have video evidence of you assaulting me first and then publicly declaring that you would lie to the police during the incident. I don't believe that would be beneficial to your reputation at work or for your Airbnb business, which is relatively tiny. In the event that appearances could kill, my mother would have blown me up like a tactical nuclear weapon. Nevertheless, she quickly regained her composure and started pulling my sister into the room by the arm. My younger sister, who was behaving like a complete and utter child, managed to escape our mother's grasp and immediately plopped down on my front step while throwing a fit. "Are you able to see now?" I questioned my mother after giving her a quick glance. "The result of the spoiled upbringing she had from you is this." After she had finished staring at me, I watched as my mother attempted to remove my sister from the front steps of my house. On the other hand, my sister grabbed to the handrail of the porch and cried out, "You promised me," over and over again. As I stood by the door, I laughed and yelled out to each of them, "Never come back." At that moment, my mother reprimanded me and returned to the task of getting my sister off the porch. Despite the fact that it took her a few minutes, She was ultimately successful in persuading my sister to get up and leave with her. She referred to me as a cruel and heartless jerk who will go to hell for this. I chuckled once again and responded, "There's also a special place in hell for liars and narcissists who try to manipulate others to get their way." I simply put up my smartphone once more with the recording and said, "The clock is ticking, Mom." This caused my mother to tighten her fists and was ready to yell something more when I did so. "Get off my property." After that, my mother accompanied my sister to the car, gave me one more look that was condescending, and then disappeared into the distance. I had the impression that that was the final chapter, but my mother never let things go for good. A few days later, I started receiving messages from people I knew and family members who were using the internet. A good number of them were furious with me, while others merely had inquiries about what was being placed. Due to the fact that both my sister and my mother had blocked me on social media, I was unable to view what they were saying on my Facebook account or see what they were saying. My girlfriend, on the other hand, was able to view everything because they had their profiles open. The entire incident was captured on screen, and some of it was printed out. Both of their profiles contained entries that referred to me as a self-centered and cruel jerk who stole the house that was meant to be my sister's inheritance right in front of her eyes by paying off the attorney who handled Dad's estate. This is a total and utter lie, and both of them are aware of it. I called my attorney, who was also my father's attorney and a trusted family friend, and gave him copies of all the screenshots from Facebook as well as the video that my girlfriend had filmed on the day that my mother ordered that I move out of my house. My intention was to take it a step further, so he wrote them a letter instead of sending a simple cease and desist letter. He wanted to write a letter. I advised him to send it by express mail that required a signature in order to determine whether or not they had got it. It was on the same day that the letter arrived that my mother called me in an angry state. I warned her that if she and my sister did not remove all of the false social media posts they made about me and reveal the truth, I would send an email to her entire family, her boss, and upload the videos we captured of her online. In addition, I would sue her on top of everything else that I had done about the situation. She accused me of being crazy by claiming that she had only done what she did for the sake of my sister. She then proceeded to give a full-fledged lecture, during which she reiterated her belief that my sister still required my house more than I did. I made it abundantly apparent that I did not care what she believed, and I warned her that her career would be ended if she did not remove everything and reveal the truth. It was with reluctance that she responded, "Fine, you win." After hanging up the phone he commented, "You should keep the stupid house." At that very moment, every single dishonest post that had been made on their profiles disappeared. I was unblocked, and my mother presented me and everyone else with a half-hearted apology, explaining that she had hurried what she said because she believed that my sister required my house more than I did due to the fact that she is pregnant and broke. On the other hand, she admitted that the house was legally mine according to the will that my father had left behind, and she was aware of this fact before he passed away. Therefore she had no right to attempt to claim it. In addition, my sister expressed her regret, but she virtually reiterated everything that our mother had said. She stated that she had just agreed with her beliefs and then blamed what she had done on our mother and the pregnant emotions that she was experiencing. The answers came in on both my mother's and sister's pages for a period of time, and a significant number of people were depressed by the fact that they attempted to seize my house. I received a lot of sorries and my bads from people who had previously believed her, but all it did was show me who was more on her side in the first place, because they were also willing to swallow her nonsense. I could not believe it. Regardless, the majority of them were members of her family's side of the family. She was not believed by anyone on my father's family, and they were vocal about their lack of belief. In the end, my sister and her boyfriend decided to move in with our mother in order to save money. Nevertheless, she kept them in the basement in order to maintain the operation of her Airbnb. Due to the fact that my mother barely wrote anything due of the trick she had played earlier, my sister started sobbing on social media about how she is unable to live upstairs. I am very certain that the two of them are arguing because all my sister did after that was complain online. Having made it this far, you are only getting started with what is ahead. The second part is very hot and wilder than the first. It is going to be the very next video that is uploaded, so if you haven't already done so, subscribe to YouTube with notifications turned on so that you don't miss it and give it a thumbs up as a backup. When the sister and mother came at the OP's apartment, the first peculiar thing that stuck out to me as being too obvious to look away from was the fact that they were there. Based on my understanding of the circumstances, the brother believed that the mother had just told her, "It's a done deal, you're getting this house." And the sister had believed it for some reason. This is the only interpretation I can come up with. It is either the case that the sister is so naive that she believes that the mother has the authority to take the property away from the owner and give it to her, regardless of who owns the house, Or that the mother simply lied and made up some kind of reasoning as to why the house was rightfully hers. I thought the mother's notion was a terrible one. She essentially told him, "It's time to do your brotherly duty." And she believed that he would just hand up the house by that point. The father spent the most of his life working on this house in order to ensure that it would be a generational heirloom once he was able to hand it down to his son. On the other hand, the situation in which the daughter only receives the automobile and the son, the OP, receives everything else is one that I could imagine being somewhat irritating. That may be a source of frustration. I am able to acquire that, but it does not alter the fact that certain individuals are given what. That viewpoint cannot be rationalized in any manner, at least not in the way that they look to be doing here. This recurring motif can be seen throughout the entirety of Part 2. Although Part 2 is rather lengthy, you can still observe parts of that line of reasoning in that section as well. In light of the fact that the girlfriend was filming the entire event in which they struck each other, I have a sneaking suspicion that the OP's girlfriend was not recording their interaction at all. It is possible that she merely yes-anded the scenario, participating in the situation in an improvised manner and saying, "Yeah, it was recording the whole time." There was not an excessive amount of defensiveness displayed by the OP and his girlfriend when the mother and sister came. To put it simply, they were perplexed. In conclusion, the mother's exact statement, which was by far the most peculiar component of the entire incident, was as follows. "I am God." In other words, when I say jump, you define the height at which you want to jump. This house is rightfully mine. You are attempting to convince someone to give you something that you believe you deserve for some reason because you were this person's previous spouse, despite the fact that you divorced 10 years ago. It is weird that you're referring to yourself as God in the middle of an argument. My husband wanted an open marriage, but it backfired. Now I'm happier without him. Original post. My husband, Leo, 34M, and I, 30F, have been together for 7 years, married for 4 of them. We don't have any kids and we don't intend to. 2 years ago, Leo asked me for an open marriage. I was devastated at the time. I couldn't understand why he didn't just want me. I couldn't even comprehend the idea of sharing him either. He gave me the same song and dance a lot of men give their spouses, swore up and down that he loved me. I just wasn't fulfilling his needs. He needed more than what I could give. It was just to spice up our life. It was just sex, etc., etc. I did ask if there was someone else. He said no. To this day, I'm still not sure if I believed him. But at the time, I was angry and hurt and said no. He pestered me to change my mind for a week before giving me an ultimatum. Open marriage or divorce? I chose the open marriage. I just couldn't bear the thought of him leaving me at the time. We have rules. We can't bring any partners home. We have to get tested for STD every 3 months. 1 weekend out of the month must be left free for us time. Any money we spend on with our partners must come from our personal accounts. I didn't partake in the open marriage myself for the first 3 months. Leo obviously did right away. He seemed to be gone or out late almost all the time, but he always acted so happy and loving towards me while I felt like I was dying inside. It killed me to think he was sleeping with other women, and I felt so lonely and unattractive and not good enough. I told my sister, Katie, 26F, and a few close friends everything. Katie told me to just play his game and be part of the open marriage too. If he can sleep around, so could I. I honestly didn't have much confidence in myself at the time. I'm a bit overweight and I've never considered myself conventionally pretty. I was afraid this would just humiliate me further. Katie and my best friend Jessie, 30F, set up my online dating profiles for me. I got so many matches that it was overwhelming. When I told Leo, he was surprised, but told me to do whatever I thought was best. Jessie helped me choose my first date, and I actually had a great time. He didn't pressure me for sex and took me out to drinks and dinner. We did have sex eventually, but it was all just casual and we didn't see each other after a couple months of casual dating. That first guy really made me feel more confident in myself. So I kept going on dates with men. A lot of them wanted to treat me, so I didn't have to spend much of my own money. Not only that, but some of the men have given me the best sex I've ever had in my life. Almost like the kind of sex you read in romance novels. It's been amazing. I am currently seeing 2 different men, alongside Leo. One, Mark, 38M, is more of a steady boyfriend I've been with for about 6 months, and the one, Stephen, 25M, is very casual, mostly just hanging out and sex. They know about my open marriage, other relationships, and are fine with it. My husband has not been so lucky. In the beginning, he definitely was. He was always out and about and didn't seem to care even when I started dating too. But now he just complains a lot and hasn't been going out much. He whines about how he's usually the one spending money. A lot of the women he tries to be with want an emotional connection before sex. He often wants to be with younger women, but they want younger men. He's also been upset that I go out with random guys so often while he's at home alone all the time. He hasn't asked to close the marriage yet, but I feel like he will soon. He keeps saying he misses us and wants to spend more time together. He tried to initiate sex a lot more too. He wants to go on dates and go on vacations and all that stuff more and more, and he gets upset when I tell him I can't because I've already scheduled to do stuff with my partners, mostly Mark. Honestly, I don't think I love Leo anymore. I care about him, but I just don't love him. I'm not saying I love Mark or Steven, but I honestly feel closer to Mark nowadays than I do Leo. Mark makes me feel comfortable and safe, and I love spending time with him more than my own husband. Steven is funny and sweet and really good at sex. Katie and Jesse have been wanting me to divorce for a year now, but I was afraid of hurting him and thought I still loved him. But I think my love for him died when he asked for this open marriage in the first place. Seeing him get all pissy about it now just because he's not benefiting from it is also a turnoff for me too. But I don't know if divorce is the best option. I still care about him and I still don't want to hurt him. Maybe if he finally asks to close the marriage, we can talk about it then. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Divorce. You're happier without him. He would only want to close the marriage because he can't get laid, not that he only loves you. OP. We've just been together for so long that the idea of him not being there feels weird. Which sounds stupid since I have 2 other partners, so it's not like I'll be lonely. But Leo was a part of my life for so long that for him to not be there just doesn't feel right. But you're probably right. OP on her husband dismissing her feelings regarding the open marriage. OP, I really do think Leo does love me, in his own way. Even when he was more active in the open marriage, he still made time for me and still did a lot with him, for me. But you're probably right on the divorce. Comment 2. Part of the issue is the main relationship is supposed to be the important one, so the whole 1 weekend a month for us time wasn't enough. OP, I actually did argue that in the beginning, but he insisted that he needed to keep his weekends free. He did spend a lot of time at home during the weekdays, so in his mind, that made up for it. Comment 3. What if he finds evidence of your open marriage and frames you as a cheater and then brings you to the cleaners? At this point, I wouldn't trust Leo. What you're experiencing is normalcy. You're used to his presence in your life, but how long are you going to live like this? OP, Jesse had the same train of thought of you and actually took screenshots of his dating profiles during the beginning of the open marriage. She also told me to save screenshots of any texts we had about the open marriage. I don't think Leo would do that, but I also didn't think he'd ever ask for an open marriage, so what do I know? Update 1. Hi everyone. I got so many comments and messages on my last post, which got deleted for some reason, that I was a bit overwhelmed. Especially when a lot of you kept saying the same thing. Divorce, divorce, divorce. But the thing is, I think a part of me still loves my husband. I know in my last post that I didn't think I loved him anymore, but I can't just forget about the things that I do love. I love when he sings in the shower. I love when he laughs so hard he snorts. I love when he kisses my forehead when I've had a bad day. I love when he holds my hand when he watch TV together. Leo has done a lot of shitty things, but he really isn't the big asshole people think. Maybe that was my fault. But even if I do still love him, I'm not in love with him anymore. I don't think I have been for a while. I care about him, a part of me does still love him, but you all were right. I should have just divorced him when he gave me that ultimatum in the first place. This past Saturday, we had the big talk. I initiated it, but he didn't seem too surprised. I just told him that I noticed he didn't seem to like me going out with Mark or Steven and asked if there was a problem. He said there was. But he didn't ask me to close the marriage. He just asked me if I still loved him. I said something like, not like I used to. He broke down crying, which made me cry. I guess he had known for a while that I wasn't in love anymore, but he had hoped he could win me back if he funneled all of his energy into me. I was honest and told him that during those first 3 months of our open marriage, I think my love for him died and I just couldn't get it back. I did tell him that I still cared about him and that I did love him, but it's not the same as it was. He asked if I loved Mark or Steven, and I said no. I like being with them and I care about them a lot, but I can't say I'm in love with either of them. I also finally asked him why he wanted an open marriage in the first place. A lot of you in the comments said he already had someone lined up and you were right. He had someone at work he was interested in and she wanted him too. The open marriage was just to get permission. He honestly never expected me to also get my own partners because of how unconfident I was, but he didn't want to stop me either because he thought nothing would come of it. He didn't really like me seeing other men, but he knew it wouldn't have been fair to tell me no when I gave him permission first. I guess Mark and Steven made him insecure because I was spending so much time with them on a regular basis. The open marriage was just sex on the side for him. He only did hookups and they never lasted long. He genuinely always just loved me. But he thought I was falling in love with my partners and he was losing me and wanted to win me back. We cried a lot and talked a lot. We've decided to get a divorce. Since the house is in his name, I'm going to move out and live with Katie for a while. He told me I didn't have to and I could stay until the divorce was finalized, but I just can't. It's too hard to even look at him sometimes. I don't know how I feel, to be honest. I thought I would be relieved or sad, but I'm just tired. I wish I could have been like you all wanted me to be, clapping back or being sarcastic and snarky or rubbing it in his face, but I don't feel like I've won anything. I just feel lost. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'm wondering if maybe the other woman ended it so now he was back to what he was comfortable with, his wife. He went and had his fun and when that died out, he was not left with a wife waiting for him at home. OP. He and his co-worker were only sleeping together for maybe a month. She fulfilled his kinks that I never liked indulging in. That's why he was with most of his partners, because I wasn't interested in his kinks. Comment 2. He stepped out of this marriage first and tried to have his cake and eat it too. The thing with open marriages is that you can never count on how emotions will change. Sex is a very intimate action and many people will develop emotional connections. Those connections come at a price. He placed a bet and he lost. At least he's man enough to acknowledge it and own up to it. There is no easy answer. OP, I wish you healing OP. Thank you. Leo just thought the open marriage would be a way for him to get all of his kinks he couldn't do with me, because I wasn't into it. He knew how unconfident I was. Which wasn't because of him. A lot of people seem to think that he eroded my self-esteem but he didn't. We can thank my mother for that, but that's a whole other can of worms. So he never expected me to partake in the open marriage either. Comment 3. So he never expected me to partake in the open marriage either. So basically while he asked for a mutually open marriage he expected it to be only his side open and then got hurt that reality didn't meet his expectations. OOP, Leo admitted that he did only expect his side to be open. He was never going to stop me from opening my side, but like I said, he didn't think I would. TBH, I don't think I would have either if it wasn't for Jesse and Katie pushing me and making profiles for me. Update 2. Hey, it's been a while. It feels like both a lot and nothing has happened. I still have a lot of feelings, but I'm also just really tired. Leo and I are still in the middle of our divorce. It's been as amicable as a divorce can be. Since we mutually agreed to it and we had a prenup, it's been pretty easy splitting everything else 50-50ths. My lawyer says I should be divorced by the end of the year. Leo is insistent on giving me alimony, but I'm not really interested. Thanks to a lot of people making me think about Leo's explanation for the open marriage, I did approach him about it again and asked him to be 100% honest with me about that girl from work. He admitted there was more to it than he admitted. This is what he explained to me, and I have decided to believe him. Even if he's lying, it doesn't really matter anymore since we're getting divorced. I also just have little energy to care about the details at this point. According to him, this is the timeline. He was posting on Reddit about his kinks for advice and such, which I did know about beforehand. He was getting messages from this one user and they just kept talking back and forth. He mentions my name to the user in a conversation, which he let me read. During his lunch break, his coworker, I'll call her Mary, approaches him and asks if he uses Reddit and asks about his handle. He confirms, and then Mary tells her he's the user he's been talking to. They start talking more and more in real life as friends and eventually start talking through IG. He also showed me these conversations. The conversations were mostly just memes and jokes with occasional flirts, mentioning of kinks. At one point, she says it's too bad he's not single. This is when he decided to demand the open marriage, because Mary was clearly into him and into the same kinks, and she could sexually satisfy him since I was unable to. That's how he basically said it anyway. Truth be told, we did have some bad difficulties before the open marriage was brought up. I'm very vanilla, and he discovered his kinks after we were married. I tried them all for him, but I just couldn't get into it and he didn't like seeing me struggle, so he didn't try to bring them into the bedroom again after it was obvious I didn't like it. So we did have sexual compatibility issues. Maybe we were doomed to fail even without the open marriage ultimatum. Our families, outside of my sister, were shocked when we told everyone we were getting a divorce. They always thought we were so happy and in love. My mom blames me, which I expected, but it still hurts. They don't know about the open marriage and Leo and I plan to keep it that way. I think he is ashamed to tell them. I am too, if I'm being honest. I really thought Leo was the love of my life. He was my first for almost everything. I said we were together for 7 years, but we were friends since college. I've known him for nearly 12 years, and we're about to become strangers soon. I still mourn my marriage, even though Katie and Jesse keep telling me this is for the best. They're both definitely thrilled, they don't hide it, but they also know this has been a weird time for me. I just don't know how to feel. I thought I would feel free or relieved or heartbroken or something, but I just feel weird. Like I lost a part of myself and I don't know how to get it back. I'm still living with Katie, but I'll be moving out soon. I found a 1-bedroom apartment that's near Jesse, so I won't be completely alone. Mark offered to let me move in with him, but I declined. Honestly, we're kind of on standby. He knows I'm having a hard time processing my feelings about my husband and the end of my marriage. I think he wants us to be official, but I don't know. I really do like Mark and I don't want to lose him, but I feel like I need to figure myself out first. As for Steven, we ended our relationship at the beginning of August. He got a job offer in another state and took it. Even though it was casual, I did cry a little. Steven is a great guy. Whenever he does decide to settle down into something serious, the woman who gets him will be a lucky one. We've been texting here and there, but it's mostly just sending each other TikToks and polite, "Hope you're doing well" messages. Some people asked me if I wanted to go back to monogamy, even after experimenting and clearly getting into this poly relationship I had going on. And the answer is yes, I do. Even though Mark and Steven were great and I met plenty of great guys during my open marriage, I don't know if I've really been happy with myself or my choices. I also think I felt guilty a lot too, like I was somehow cheating on Leo, Mark and Steven even though it was all consensual. Polyamory and open relationships may work for some people, but it's really just not for me. Jesse says I need to get a therapist. I have tried looking, but finding a therapist that's both available and seems like a good fit is a pain. Hopefully I can find one by the time the divorce is settled. I also want to figure out what to do about Mark on my own. I don't want to lead him on and give him false hope. Maybe we should take a break, or maybe I should tell him to just break up with me. He should find his own happiness without worrying about me. Relevant comments. Commenter. You're numb. It happens when you lose your partner and you're grieving, and under a great deal of stress. I think Reddit as a whole takes divorce really blithely, but I read once that divorce is one of the most stressful life events, right after death of a loved one. And I'm slightly curious. You say your family is shocked that you're divorcing, because you seemed so in love, but the fact that your friends are delighted you're leaving your husband tells me that they've witnessed some not so great relationship dynamics. OP. Katie and Jesse were the only ones I told about the open marriage, so they're glad it finally ended in divorce. None of my other friends or family members know. Commenter. I've read all of your posts, and I don't know why you're still protecting your ex by not telling people what he bullied you into doing. He had the girl all picked out and wanted your approval so he could cheat. Tell the damn world. I would. You have nothing to be ashamed about. Don't let your mother put the blame on you. You need a therapist who will help you build your self-esteem. OP. I just feel embarrassed I let it get to this point, I guess. I probably should have just gone with the divorce when the ultimatum was first issued. Commenter. I'm glad you are healing. It sounds like Mark wants more than you can give him right now. Focus on healing and finding out who you are outside of this marriage. It's sad that your STBX ruined a loving marriage for kink sex. I'm glad you are divorcing. You deserve better. Definitely get therapy. It will help you navigate the next part of your life. Mom abandoned us, leaving me to raise my brother. Now she's dying and needs my kidney. My brother pleads for me to save her. What should I do? I, 29F, need some outside ideas since I'm in a terribly mess up state. Saying no will cause our family balance to be destroyed, and I'm under pressure to give a kidney to my estranged mother, 52F. We learned my mother's kidneys are failing last month. She must start dialysis, which is not ideal long-term, according to the experts. She needs a transplant right away. Out of the 2 children of my mother, I am a perfect match and Ezra, my brother, is incompatible. They tested me and my brother. There is really crazy pressure to donate. Saying it's a chance to heal our family and atone for Mom, Ezra is asking me to do it. He doesn't understand that I am not the one who left. I am not interested in healing anything. It was not me that decided on drugs instead of family. It feels like a smack in the face when he asks me to save the mother he hardly knew at the price of the sister who reared him. Though my dad, 54M, is not directly pressing me, I can see optimism in his eyes. Though he claims he will help whatever I decide, it is clear he wants me to do it. It makes me ill since he is dreaming of having his lovely family returned. Mom hasn't straight up asked me for the kidney, but every time I see her I can sense the question hovering about. Part of me wants to scream at her and find out where this worry originated throughout my 13-year raising of her child. Knowing her life is in my control, another element seems strangely strong. Here's a little background since, although you might assume I'm vengeful, I am not. My mother disappeared from my life 16 years ago along with my brother. He was 5 years old and I was 13. She was hooked on drugs, and one day she simply disappeared, leaving our dad. Dad made every effort, but he had to work insane hours to have food on the table and a roof over our heads. Dad always worked, hence I essentially had to raise Ezra. At 13 years old, I was helping him with homework, making sure he ate, and trying to explain Mom's absence from the scene. It sucked. Massive scale. I was so busy playing mom, so I missed out on childhood. Growing up, I was furious with everyone. Mad at Mom for leaving, mad at Dad for not being there enough, mad at Ezra for needing me so much, and mad at myself for not being able to make everything right. While I was figuring out how to split a package of mac and cheese into 2 meals, I saw other children lead typical lives. Ezra found it easier. I confirm this. Though it meant I could not. I wanted him to have as normal a life as possible. I concealed my own tears so I could clean his, lied to him about why we cannot afford things, acted as though everything was fine when Dad and I were hysterical about finances, and so on. It was abundantly evident as we grew older how different our early years were. Ezra went sports and hung out with friends. I was too busy becoming a mini adult to engage in any of that. This widened our gulf greatly and got more pronounced with time. Dad was doing his best, I understand now, but back then it felt as though both of my parents had dropped me. Though it still stung, I know Dad had to decide between being here physically and ensuring we wouldn't go without food. During my teens and early 20s, I was messy. I drove people away, made poor mistakes, and partied too excessively. Starting to handle all this baggage required years of therapy. Things improved when I met my 31M hubby. Though he has been quite patient and sympathetic, my prior problems surfaced even with him. I panicked out when he initially discussed starting a family. Being in charge of a child brought back all these ancient anxieties. We worked for 2 years to reach a point where I felt okay about trying for a baby. 6 months of trying have gone by now. This is now when my mother came back. She simply showed up on my dad's doorway brilliantly and early, like an abandoned child at an orphanage. Not wasting any time, my father allowed her in and summoned Ezra and me in for a family meeting. My mother struck me as a stranger. She wanted to right things and said she was clean. Though Ezra was all for it, I was dubious as heck. It was simpler for him to forgive her as he cannot recall the worst of times she spent doing drugs. I saw it. My mother was my personal hell. Still, my dad urged us to give her some time, which infuriated me. Though I stayed away for their family reunion, I could tell he was eager to see the lady he used to love. Before I left, I hardly spoke a word to my mother. Living with my dad once more, during the last few months, my mother has been working to mend connections with us. She kept her cleanliness, found employment, and expressed regret for her actions. But for me it is too little too late. I have been polite, but I cannot regard her as my mother anymore. That dumb fool Ezra wholeheartedly accepted her return. He always talks about the fun they spend together and how wonderful it is to have a mother once more. It triggers my desire to yell. Like he has forgotten all I did for him, all we went through. Boom, my mother was diagnosed, so I tried to pay attention to my life and not worry. Ezra was crying. My father was crying. And I wished I could have been anywhere else but that hospital room. Indeed, Ezra was keen to be a donor when the doctor discussed the complications of dialysis and the large transplant list my mother would have to join. I agreed with his choice, but he hauled me along too when he was checked for compatibility and I turned out to be the ideal fit. Not signing the organ donation form, I hurried out of the hospital right away. Why ought I to sign it? Right now, my father and brother claim I have an unforgiving attitude and a stone heart. Instead, they are rallying around my mother and neglecting me. Although my husband swears he will support me no matter what, I can see he is anxious. He has been excellent through all this. He worries about the surgical hazards and how they might interfere with our intended baby-bearing plans. He also notes how hard I have worked in therapy and doesn't want anything to reverse all that improvement. To add to the craziness, my aunt, Mom's sister, 50F, just called tonight. She told me what was a bombshell of sorts. She hasn't forgiven my mother for leaving everyone either. Turns out Mom had been cheating on Dad with a married man and had been pregnant, thus leaving us was not only due in part to drugs. She departed to have the kid and a fresh life, bailing on us once and permanently blaming drug addiction as justification. Though I really don't know how that worked out or why she came back, learning this has opened all the old scars. Mom departed when she had a decision to stay as well as when she abandoned us. I might never run upon a half-sibling out there wherever. I'm still trying to make sense of it. I haven't yet told anyone else in the family about this. Knowing this secret together with all the renal pressure is making me crazy. Thinking about my terrible upbringing and wondering whether I missed some indicators, I stay up all night. I'm wondering every sacrifice I made, every part of my youth I gave up, and how it compares to what I now know about Mom's actual leaving motivation. Ezra is clueless on any of this fresh material. He keeps urging me to donate the kidney, discussing family responsibility and how this could fix everything. But all I can think of is how he got to have a childhood while I was busy parenting him. Dad likewise doesn't know. He seems all soft about Mom once more, and it makes me want to shake him and remind him of all the misery she caused. I am rather conflicted. It almost seems too much to consider having major surgery and forfeiting an organ for someone who decided to drop me. I consider the hazards and how they might skew my odds of becoming pregnant. Already, I have given up so much for this family. My youth, my opportunity to be a normal child, my sense of security. Giving up a bit of my body seems excessive. The villain is me right now. What then, Reddit, is the outcome? Am I the hole for turning down to donate my estranged mother my kidney? Is my attachment to the past excessive? I am the only one who recalls how terrible things actually were and the only one who paid Mom the whole cost for her decisions. This is drowning me with decisions. Every decision seems bad in some capacity. How can I manage this unworkable scenario without totally losing my sanity? Help me right here on Reddit. Update 1. Hi Reddit, I expected no one would interact with this post, hence I intended to delete it 24 hours later. The volume of upvotes and comments this is getting is ridiculous though. I would like to first thank everyone for their opinions on my circumstances. Reading through all of it has given me something to consider. Though I have to be honest, some of the comments urging me to forgive and forget really irritate me. I value those who took the time to grasp my viewpoint. I understand Ephesians 4:32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. Though a great concept, you know what? Sometimes forgiveness is more complicated than a Bible chapter. Not only did my mother's actions affect one day or one week, they molded my whole life. I lost my childhood, my sense of safety, and my faith in the people meant to be watching out for me. You cannot just wipe that with a hug and some kind words. And to all those arguing, but she's your mother. Biology does not always inspire love or respect. Sure, my mother delivered me, but I am the one who had to grow up too quickly and had to be a mother to my younger brother when she cannot be bothered. When she was out high and leaving her children to fend for themselves, where was all this family is everything conversation? Look, I'm not aiming to be resentful or nasty. Despite all she has put me through, I am attempting to safeguard the life I have created. A few of you have mentioned complete family therapy. When she returned first, we tried that. It did not miraculously make everything right. Although my mother said all the right things and shed tears, it did not undo years of struggle and desertion. Many of you have brought out the dangers of kidney donation, and I value that. It goes beyond the procedure itself to include long-term consequences. Suppose I have issues that compromise my capacity for childbearing. What happens if I need kidneys later in life? For someone who didn't give second thought to sacrificing me, am I meant to give my health and maybe my future? My hubby has heard me discuss all of this. He reminded me that I had nothing to owe anyone. Not even my mother, so it's acceptable to give my own well-being top priority. The thought of compromising that for someone who has been more of a stranger than a mother is simply too much. We are still trying for a baby. My family's pressure hasn't let up. Ezra has been text-blowing my phone with messages ranging from extreme rage to guilt-tripping. He even ventured to remark that I would be no better than Mom was when she left us if I let her die. That one hurts. I cannot lie. Dad has been more subdued, but every time we speak he sounds disappointed. They seem to have all forgotten what I went through, what we went through. And then there is my mother. At last she plucked the bravery to give me a straight call. I let it drop off to voicemail. Her message was difficult to hear. She was crying and telling me she is afraid of dying even though she knows she does not deserve my support. Though a large part of me remembered all the times I was terrified and alone due to her choices, part of me wanted to reassure her. Regarding what my aunt revealed regarding Mom's affair and the baby she turned over, I still haven't told anyone. Every time I consider bringing it up, I picture Dad's expression. How it would destroy Ezra's recently discovered relationship with Mom. But hiding this is eating me inside. Carrying the weight of her mistakes, It feels like I am shielding her all over once more. This update most likely makes me sound frigid and merciless. Maybe I am. I am exhausted yet as well. Weary of having to be the one who must be strong and sacrifice-bearing. I want to put myself first for once without feeling bad about it. That's where I am right now. Still conflicted, still aching, still unsure about the correct course of action. Though it means playing the villain in everyone else's life, I am striving to stand my ground and give my own health and happiness top priority. I appreciate it. Still, thank you for listening, Reddit. Though I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, knowing there are individuals out there that understand even just a small bit helps more than you could possibly imagine. Update 2. Sure, Reddit. Though I realize it has only been 2 days, I am here with another update and things have become even more disorganized. Recall how Ezra stated had been blowing my phone? He realized, though, messaging was insufficient. Yesterday he showed up to my residence without warning. While I was at work, my spouse was home finishing some job-related duties. My husband claims Ezra broke into our house yelling about Mom's worsening illness and how the doctors said time was running short. Saying he would pull me to the hospital personally should he have to, he insisted on knowing where I was. Bless him, my husband attempted to cool Ezra down. Ezra wasn't having it, but I was at work and this wasn't the way to handle things. He charged my spouse of poisoning me against Mom, of turning me against my family. Things grew hot, and Ezra actually swung at my husband. Fortunately, my husband avoided it, but he had to physically restrain Ezra to prevent him from ruckling the apartment in search of me. It grew so nasty that one of our neighbors phoned the police. I arrived home exactly as the cops were leaving. Our living room looked like a tornado had hit. My husband had a bruise on his jaw where Ezra had landed a blow. Though Ezra departed when the police arrived, the harm was done. I was startled. I raised a different younger brother here. This was not the child I would have sacrificed all for. It was like viewing the output of a stranger, and a violent one at that. I hoped to gently talk some sense into Ezra when I called him. I raised him not expecting him to be behaving this way. Great error. He grabbed her and began yelling at me. Every name in the book he called me, accusing me of being self-serving and of not thinking about family. Then he said something I will never forget. I'll never forgive you if Mom dies because of you. You will be dead to me, exactly as you are allowing her to die. I hung there. I was not able to breathe. It seemed as though all of my darkest concerns were realized. Choosing Mom above me, the brother I reared, the one I thought would always have my back, was doing. I disintegrated, full on ugly crying, unable to catch my breath. My husband carried me through it, but I sensed he was also disturbed. We are being pulled apart in general from this. To aggravate things, my dad phoned this morning. Ezra reportedly told him a distorted account of events in our residence. Dad now believes I set my husband on Ezra, that I am the one generating all this conflict. He really had the arrogance to claim that none of this would be happening if I just quit being obstinate and gave the kidney. I vanished. I shared with him all about Mom's infidelity. About the baby she turned over, about her decision to leave us. How it was not only the narcotics. I told him how I had been holding this secret, shielding Mom even now, after everything. I told him it was also his fault and that I'd been furious all my life. On the other side of the line, for what seemed like eternity, there was quiet. I then listened to a sob. I had only seen my dad break down perhaps twice in my lifetime. He continued to apologize, stating he didn't know, he should have been there more. I felt terrible. I would have hurt him all over once again in trying to defend myself. But somewhere else I felt relieved as well. At last, someone else was dragging the weight I had carried all my life. Ezra sent me many texts once we hung up. Dad had contacted him and shared everything. Right now, Ezra's song has totally changed. Apologizing, he said he didn't understand and begged me to pardon him. I'm not sure though, whether I can. I cannot simply ignore the things he said or the way he behaved. Mom has been blowing my phone too. Dad ought to have confronted her about the affair back then as well as the child. Her messages combine calls to understanding with apologies. She is stating she changed and was young and afraid. Young indeed. Dad and brother are still adjusting, looking after her daily. All I can think is, where was this empathy when I was young and terrified? I feel as though I am drowning. Mom's health is declining, Dad's messy, and me? I am merely trying to maintain above water. Not sure what to do going forward. Some of me wants to flee, to vanish as Mom did all those years ago. That is not the solution, but I know. I have too long been gathering the fragments of her errors. I'll create different ones instead. I'm now off from work for some time. To help us to clear our brains, My husband and I are considering a little trip. Except for Dad's, I have blocked every number. I need room to consider what I want and what I need. I'm not sure whether I will ever offer that kidney. Even if I wanted to, the way things are currently makes me not sure I could manage to be in the same room as my family long enough to accomplish it. That brings us to the present situation. The state of my family is disorganized. I'm left wondering if there's any way to sort this mess, or if it's even worth trying, because my brother has exposed a side of himself I never knew existed. I appreciate you paying attention, Reddit. About if I should update once more, I'm unsure. I might even pull the original post. Right now though, I simply have to concentrate on healing. Not only for my mother, but also for me. Final update. Alright Reddit, my last update was some time ago, hence a lot has changed. 3 months following the surgery, I'm writing from home. You did really read correctly. My mom received my kidney donation. Given how fervent I was about not doing it before, I know many of you would find this shocking. I am still processing it personally, believe me. One thing should be clear though, I chose this. Nobody put pressure on me. Not my mom, not even my dad, not Ezra. My spouse and I spent some time away following my last update and discussed it. We leased a cabin in the mountains, no cell service, no internet, just us, nature and lots of time to reflect. Although I kept having nightmares and knew I would never forgive myself if I did not at least try to help, being away from the turmoil helped clear my thoughts. The idea of my mother dying and of having that on my conscience was intolerable. I came to see that I was furious at the world, at the unfairness of it all, not just at my mother. And clinging to that rage was causing more damage than anyone else could have. I told my spouse my choice when we returned. Though concerned, he was also encouraging. We visited with the doctors, gathered all the data, and began the process. I will not lie, it was not simple. The operation was difficult, and the healing was more so. You know what though? I have not come to regret it. Not because it instantly corrected everything. Rather, I feel at peace with myself for the first time in years. I ran across my mother before they wheeled us in on the day of the procedure. She was weeping and repeatedly thanking me. I told her the truth, that I was acting for me as much as for her. I could not forget, I'd just forgiven her. I hoped she would recover, but I saw no future in which we would live near together. Though she understood, that wasn't what she wanted to hear. Though some things are better left unknown, I wanted to question her about my sister. We hugged, a true hug, not the uncomfortable ones we had exchanged since she returned. In several respects, it felt like a farewell. I am rebuilding our friendship with Ezra. He sincerely apologizes for his actions. Though sluggish, it's an improvement nonetheless. He is beginning to see the sacrifices I made and recognizing that his recollections of our childhood don't tell the complete picture. Parents, Dad. Dad has been right by everyone's side during all of this. He is also juggling his own shame and regrets. We now find ourselves getting closer in a manner not seen in years. He shares with me his pride in me, not only for the gift but also for the person I have grown to be despite all. She has been amazing. From the choice until the rehabilitation, he was there at every stage. We have a closer relationship than ever. Regarding myself, I am healing in several different ways. Though the physical rehabilitation has not been simple, the emotional weight I have carried for years seems less. Not foolish enough to believe everything is wonderful right now. My gloomy days and my periods of uncertainty still exist. Still, I'm glad of myself for choosing to be true to who I am, not someone else wanted me to be. To each of you who helped me along this road, thank you. Your comments and your understanding meant more than you could possibly know. Remember, forgiveness is personal and healing is not straightforward. Reddit. Parents ignored my milestones for my brother's events, so I didn't tell them about my wedding. Now they're publicly shamed and facing divorce. My younger brother is Mike, 21M. 27F, always grumbling and expecting others to meet him. He is the definition of a man-child and a mama's boy. My parents hovered over him for everything from birth. He was born. My parents totally ignored me. He has no special needs or a difficult birth. Particularly, my mother, 50F, transformed from a loving mother to one of those boy moms people ridicule on the internet. Though he still loved and supported me, my father, 50M, has always been too cowardly to challenge my mother and let me prevail, at least once. My grandfather, 76M, always called my parents out on their actions and never liked my brother, hence he was the only one who stuck up for me. Though Dad lives on the other side of the nation, so I couldn't see him frequently. I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have a very unique link. Mike knows our mom adores him and enjoys pushing it in my face. This and his behavior have always caused friction between us. He is a horrible human, spoiled, bratty. Not even sure how many times I got in hot water for activities I performed better than him or for things he framed me for. His only aptitude is football, which landed him a scholarship to a respectable out-of-state university. Apparently, my fund had been taken to defray bills after a fire, only for me to find years later that Mike had been given the money to purchase a house and a car, so my parents paid nothing for my schooling. At public university, I ran across Lucas. I originally found great attraction in him. Of course, I met other people who are now my dearest friends. Owing to them and Lucas, my best friend for years before we got together, I was able to move out of my parents' house. Lucas and I both have really good pay now and are well known in our industries. Now let us focus on the major problem. Lucas told me a year ago. Being very private individuals, we did not broadcast it on social media. My parents laughed off my telling them with a "that's nice." I am beginning to believe they paid hardly any attention to me. We chose to have a modest yet elegant ceremony and celebration among friends and relatives. Though they never answered the invitation, Lucas persuaded me to invite my brother and mom. Every time I went and tried to discuss the wedding, without mentioning it, my mother would always talk over me about the adventures and successes of my brother. I once grew bored and stopped my mother to let her know about an event I had scheduled with an unmovable date. She wanted them there, but my brother was playing the last game of the season on that same day and they couldn't make it. Of course, this preference did not surprise me. They missed my ballet performances and both my university and high school graduations for events connected to him. By now I wanted to be petty. I told my parents it wasn't a problem for them to miss the event, deliberately omitting the information it was my wedding, and I didn't press any more. Imagine a few weeks ago, I was married. It was just beautiful. There was my family, Lucas's family, and our buddies. We had an amazing time. It was exactly right, and my grandpa was glad to be giving me away. My cousins questioned me several times about the absence of my parents. I told them straight out they couldn't come since they had a brother's game to attend. They looked at me a few times. My grandpa seemed obviously upset for a little, but otherwise nothing unusual happened. Lucas and I traveled for our honeymoon after the reception, and we were phone-free all during the vacation. Once we returned though, we found a storm waiting at our house. Turning on my phone, I cannot even open it before an alert flood erupted. Of these, most came from my mother and brother. Mike called me all kinds of awful names and insulted me since apparently one of my paternal aunts uploaded pictures of the wedding on Facebook and tagged them with a very clear dig at my parents, especially my mom, for missing the ceremony. The message went seemingly viral in my parents' neighborhood, and they have been publicly humiliated for mistreating me. My grandfather also personally went to see my parents to face my father, his son, embarrassing him to the point of tears. This looked to be the breaking point for my father. He ultimately revolted against my mother since he was so upset by missing the wedding of his only daughter and his father's criticism. He is now threatening divorce unless she makes it up to me. I believe this is the reason my mother has been messaging my phone, first nasty and threatening, then absolutely sad, full of pleading and pity parties. I am currently at home with my hubby, figuring out how to handle things. Claiming they had no idea this was happening at home, most of my relatives, including those I invited to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through. Since my grandpa lives on the opposite side of the nation or another state, I cannot attribute guilt to any of my relatives. But since now she is inconsolable at the notion of missing the wedding, my mom's sisters and friends are demeaning me for not telling her about it. Though I'm not sure, personally I believe she's only starting to save face. The most recent texts from my mother and father seem to be quite depressed and wounded by missing my wedding. My family is split now on 3 fronts, the majority supporting me, my mother's relatives embarrassing me for hurting her emotions, and my mother's demanding that I forgive her in view of her efforts at atonement. Reddit Aida. My best friends tell me not to pay attention to them. Edit. I really appreciate your love and comments. It is very overwhelming. Here I will answer the often asked questions. I did tell my folks about my wedding. All of my guests received conventional paper invites, and I was informed that every invite had arrived at the correct address. From Mike or my folks, I got no response. A few very far-off relatives and several Lucas side associates also ignored it. I messaged every one of them to double-check, and those who hadn't replied said they couldn't make it. When I text my brother and dad, they never answer. I was left reading. Knowing them and weighing all I had to schedule, I stopped trying to insist. 2. I had already been informed that my brother had a game, hence I omitted mentioning the date of my wedding. Every time I insisted on bringing up my festivities in order to obtain a response, I was constantly told that some things were simply more important than me and not to be pissy or a hassle. By now, I believe it reasonable for me to give up arguing. Not worth the effort, was it? 3. I do not keep my wedding under wraps. I refrained from telling my parents it was my wedding to see whether they would show the least of interest, but surprise, surprise, they did not. Still, I told my relatives and uncles straightforwardly about my wedding. Sometimes my mother was on the phone, other times she was just conversing with other people. She was in the room a few times when I discussed locations or dress stores with my aunt. She never paid attention when I brought it up. She grinned and said, "That's great, dear," at reunions, then would switch the topic. From Dad and Mike, radio silence. I stayed in touch with them as every time I tried to go no contact, NC in earlier years, I was harassed. Always for reasons involving my brother, I attempted after my high school, bachelor's, and master's graduations, which they never bothered to come up for. Every time I dared to turn my back on the family of my mother's aunts, brother, parents, and maternal grandparents, I was disgraced. The turning point in this is that Lucas was not at my side over all those years. We began dating a little after my previous NC try, and now that I have him here, I feel more sure of my position. But I lacked confidence before that. As I said earlier, my paternal side lives on the other side of the nation and was not aware of how my parents handled me. Once when I was 14, I did try to show my parents. They pretended to be sorry as my aunts, uncles, and grandpa chastised them. But once we arrived home, I was subjected to gaslighting and beating for lying. Following that, I had regular communication with my paternal side, but refrained from acknowledging my parents' mistreatment out of anxiety, which, to be honest, still torments me now. Only Grandpa knew, but if he tried anything he was always under danger from my alienation. 5. I am not from the same city as my parents. They don't know my new address. I live in a city 1 hour's drive from my parents' little town. This is thus because my mother supported my brother's backup, stating siblings share their belongings, after he tried to break into my apartment in search of some money. I moved now and will be cautious not to let them know where I live. Before he even began high school, my parents bought my brother a house and a car instead. For his 16th birthday, they purchased him a house close to his college and a car. He started his freshman year. They simply lied to me and utilized my money later for my brother, saving it for later on. They did not use it straight away. Update 1. To those who thought my story was false, let me remark that, to the extent of considering my reality as a fantasy, your family life is better than mine. However, if you would quit sending DMs and bothering me under the pretext of me fabricating a tale, it would be much appreciated. I was overwhelmed and bawling my eyes out from the abuse of my family, thus I overlooked a few specifics in the original message. Although you are not compelled to believe my account or follow it, I would like the least degree of politeness maintained. Before delving into the update, let me also clarify a few points. 1. Indeed, the invitation said clearly it was a wedding, no justification. 2. My mother's side of the family skipped the wedding. I apologize for not making that obvious in the first post. Most of them were occupied. The others only offered me gifts or reasons but did not show up. That is exactly what I mean. It's not like I live in their thoughts, so don't ask me why they didn't talk about my wedding with my mother. The fact that my mother sent an SMS apologizing serves as her atonement. Let me now turn to the update. This past week things have been a little wild. I went off Reddit for a few days to sort through my ideas. I then spent a lot of time discussing with Lucas how to go forward. He has been my rock. I could never love him more than I already do. Though my parents were always a forbidden subject, he gave me a hard reality check I really needed. We came to the conclusion that my constant contact, sticking around, and inability to go NC is not healthy. I now see that my lack of complete participation in NC stemmed from deep down, even now merely wanting their approval. Pathetic, I know, but it feels like a drug being with my folks. Until they are not, they can be loving, humorous, sympathetic, and warm. Their small love makes you want more and drives you to ruin yourself in great need of their praise. That is sufficient though. I told myself that things will evolve. After some contemplation, I decided to start therapy and to avoid all people who raised concerns about this matter for good this time. After spending a day thinking about how I felt, I messaged my father to let him know I would meet Mom, Dad, and Mike in a neutral area the next day should he want to discuss. He answered instantly and agreed. We convened at the park, and for damage control my father's sisters and brother joined us. Looking troubled, as if he had been crying for some time, was my father. Though my mother looked the same, I believe it was more out of shame and resentment. My brother gave an irritated glance. I informed the three of them how their behavior and inclination for my brother constantly upset me and how their violent behavior made me realize I wanted no more interaction with any of them. Following that conference, my mother attempted to cut me off several times. But my aunt, the Facebook post author, shut her off every single time. They didn't know what to reply when I questioned them why they treated me this manner. My uncle chastised my father for his continuing tears and apologies without response. Though in the end she merely declared she simply hated me, plain and simple, my mother seemed as if she was asking herself that for the first time. Regarding my brother, he merely enjoyed the attention and made me miserable as some sort of sport. I continued to ask questions. They claimed to have never gotten an invite. When I queried why they never answered it. When I showed them the books, they denied getting them. As it happens, they hadn't actually gotten my wedding invite. They vanished from their residence when it arrived. My brother, who had come visiting for the weekend, was the only one in the house. As many of you would have imagined, he tore up and wrecked the invite. Then he erased the messages when I texted my parents. He said it was easy as they kept my conversation preserved and omitted the notices. My parents thus never received an official invitation at all. I was simply upset. When I questioned Mike about why he would do that, he simply shrugged and said it wasn't as crucial as the other things they had scheduled anyhow. I had to stop Lucas from giving him a facial punch. Oddly enough, my folks were agitated and began chastising him. I have to admit that I was partly happy since he started to have a tantrum and scream crocodile tears. Then my mother said that everything was settled and that there was no need to wrangle over a misinterpretation. She indicated it was time for me to clear their name. That started me, so I stopped her and told her they were not forgiven at all. Mike wrecked the invite, but that did not imply that all their carelessness was immediately annulled. And all that time, I was clearly having a wedding. They ought to have inquired about it. Are you curious about the reaction of my mother? I did hear you talking about a wedding of yours, but I just thought you were being delusional and seeking my attention with exaggerated scenarios, she stated. She was sure Lucas would never marry me and didn't really like me. Do you trust me when I tell you I was ready to trash her face? Another issue surfaced. My brother apparently had hardly any football games to choose from. To create a narrative to dodge my incident, my parents exploited the knowledge my husband, friends, and I know little to nothing about football. We prefer soccer. And the fact I stopped asking about it when Mike would mock me during his time in high school. Since Lucas and I are blocked and my brother has private social media, I couldn't verify or refute the existence of a game when I originally posted. I took stupid faith in my parents' words. No though, you're interested in where the man-child disappeared to. Mike wanted to go, hence they visited Disneyland. They covered for my brother's 100th trip using the football narrative. Apparently, they did this several times during the last few months. By then I was really burned out and overwhelmed by the volume of data. My blood boiled and I snapped since I had been misled this terribly. Rising, I informed my father he was a depressed, weak man unable to defend his children until his wife approved of it. I advised my brother he would always live like the parasite he is, baby to the point of uselessness. He is a terrible excuse for a guy who will not achieve anything in life. To my mother, I stated she was the worst narcissist. A pitiful small woman who lacked even deserving treatment or evaluation for her inactivity. She is too rotten, thus even God could not be of assistance. Strong, I know. Halfway through my tirade, my mother shot from her seat to yell at me, but I was too enraged. I yelled at her to close, take a seat and listen for once. She became so enraged it seemed as though steam were emanating from her ears. After that, I seemed to recall not much except that I kept talking. My anguish and wrath seemed to pour out. I'm very convinced the entire park was silent at one point. Telling my parents and Mike I was disowning them all and that, if they were clever, they would think before reaching out again. I spit at them. Taking my pocketbook, I left with Lucas, Anna, and Francis, leaving my parents and brother at the kindness of my aunts and uncles. The truth of what I had just discovered and spoken eventually struck me at some point, and I had a panic episode on the drive home. Lucas was driving. Anna guided me through it till we stopped in a parking lot to cool me down. I owe them far more than anything. Once home I just collapsed onto the bed and turned in for the night. Though considering my profession and career, I couldn't expose myself in that way even though I really wanted to follow your advice and put the entire chat on Facebook. One thing is sharing my tale on Reddit from an unidentified throwaway, the other is Facebook with my identity and face all over showing. That road was not one I could travel. Rather, I behaved better. I created a folder containing all of my mother's nasty remarks, texts and insults and forwarded it to the woman running my mother's church. Though my mother worked her ass out to enter, this close-knit community is also somewhat judgmental. Well, that's exactly what occurred. Being rejected by them is like dying. Like clockwork, the scandal started out in the church and quickly extended across the little community. Given my tiny spill, you can see what this implies for my parents. I did discover more texts from my maternal side of the family, demeaning me even more for offending their sister or daughter. By then I simply didn't care anymore. Following your advice, I informed them they would not be in my life going forward. They can talk as they wish, I just have no interest. Rather, they should be appreciative. I do not send their unpleasant texts to their husbands or jobs. I blocked every single one of them, including my grandparents. I did come across a long note from my father. He stated he was sorry for not being strong enough to challenge my mother, agreed what I said was accurate, and couldn't believe he had missed so much of my life due to her. Tired of being controlled, he informed me he was going to divorce her regardless of my choice. He stated he wanted a relationship with me to offset all the years gone by. I did respond to him, saying at the moment I truly do not want to see him or pardon him. He said he loves me and he will do his best to get me back. I answered that I then blocked him too, since I find that hard to believe. Frankly, his slimy approach of attempting to get out from under this issue by dumping my mother under the bus is pitiful. She owned it and at least was hostile. He only blames others for his decisions, hence I do not want to hang around people like that. Likewise blocked are my mother and brother. I just blocked Mike as he messaged me more to harass and threaten. My mother gave herself a pity party for her marriage falling apart and for her being outcast by her neighborhood. I simply said good, then blocked her too. Regarding my grandfather, he has chosen to stay with us temporarily to be at my side. Having perused some of your remarks, he truly is the finest. He won't own that he finds them flatulent. A few days have gone since then. All has been peaceful. Lucas is spoiling me rotten, and I have therapy shortly.